Welcome to Raging Bullets, a DC Comics fan podcast. A very snowy episode 191. Welcome to Raging Bullets. I'm Sean Whalen, Dr. Norge on the comic forums, and I'm joined as always by my co-host Jim Segulin, also known as the Tony Robbins of con artists, featuring his new book, Double Shuffle, Flim Flam and Whatnot, How to Keep the Flow Going. So says the sensei of the Whatnot Segulin and the Duke of You-Know.
How's it going, eh?
Yeah, you'll understand that a little bit later.
In a bit, yeah.
Yeah, especially when you get into our discussion about Gotham City Sirens. Jim and I, because of the holidays, we got a little ambitious, and we started talking about how we could get together and we could do a big preacher segment, and we have been trying to find time to communicate, much less get together and record an episode. And we wanted to make sure we kept the show on schedule, so we're doing a Skype recording here, where we picked up a couple of books that we're really interested in right now. We talked about Wonder Woman number 39, Gotham City Sirens number 7, and we also have some listener voicemails that we're chatting about and some of the recent DC Universe news. We're going to do a couple of episodes like this week. I want to get definitely a Blackest Night short one in, talking about the two main issues at least, and thematically I'm sure we'll be talking about some of the other things that have been going on outside. And I also want to get in, we have a couple other books that you and I both wanted to talk about. So we'll try to do some recordings like this, so we might be back a little bit sooner, show-wise, on this. But we thought it'd be kind of fun to kind of go this route, and hopefully you guys will enjoy this. We didn't want to skip an episode and wait till we could do Preacher, because that seemed like, okay, we're leaving you guys hanging. And we actually found we were going to just pick a couple of books, and we found a whole bunch that we want to talk about, including something spinning out of a voicemail that's on here. We're actually, next episode, going to for sure talk about JSA, the initial JSA issue. Yeah, part of the split. So that'll be part of our discussion. But, Jim, what kind of a podcast are we?
Well, Sean, we are a spoiler podcast. We go in-depth into plotline, story twists, and whatnot of the comics we're reviewing. So if we're going over something you haven't read, you may want to come back later so you can better enjoy the show.
Our sponsors for this episode are DCBService.com and InStockTrades.com. Over at DCBService.com, I want to remind everyone that we're at the end of the month. This is your last chance to get some of the deals from December. And they're getting ready for January's new books, that's always my favorite time of the month. I'm seeing the deals, so I'm really excited for that. So if you haven't been shopping at DCBService.com, go ahead and check it out, especially take a look at the deals for December, but get excited for the deals in January, because those are always, I'm always looking forward to collected editions that are offered at an insane discount, and books that they're spotlighting that are anywhere from 50 to 75% off. So it's they've got some incredible discounts that are there. So thank you, DCBService.com, for continuing to support us. Jim, we are going to be doing in January JLA Avengers, the trade paperback. This is that once-in-a-lifetime crossover that brought two super teams together and rocked the comics world. This is available in trade paperback. It's the entire 4-issue co-publishing event between DC and Marvel, written by Kurt Busiek, with stunning art by George Perez, and has an introduction by the original Avengers writer-editor, Stan Lee, and Justice League of America editor, Julius Schwartz. 208 pages, regularly $19.99, 47% off, only $10.59. If you have not read it, pick it up. It's going to be a great chance for us next month to be talking about DC and Marvel on Raging Bullets. And we're going to be joined by friend of the show, Kent Hare. So I'm excited for that. That's going to be a fun event. Jim, I want to remind everyone that we are on Get Your Geek On Radio. GetYourGeekOnRadio.com, an online radio station committed to making geek chic. And you can actually click on that right from our website. I've got a widget that's on the website, so you can listen to Get Your Geek On Radio from there. If you go to their website, they have a schedule for our show that they have every week that they list our show up there. But they have music playing all the time and other podcasts and shows and radio shows that are exclusive to their station that focus on comics and geek tech and all kinds of stuff that we'd find interesting. So they're constantly adding new material, so check out Get Your Geek On Radio. It's very cool. And we are proud members of the Comics Podcast Network and the League of Comic Book Podcasts. And remind everybody about the Hero Initiative. That's heroinitiative.org for more information. There's a handy-dandy link on RagingBullets.com. Also check out comics4site.com to try and help out John Ostrander. Jim, without further ado, let's jump right into the show.
Carter Hall, scientific genius from a far-off world, flies into action as Hawkman.
Jim, we had that fun Ragdoll of the Whatnot contest, and I gave away a lot of really cool prizes. I had G.I. Joe Classic Volume 1. Mike Sims took that. JLA The Year 1 trade was given away to one of the winners. Secret 6, the first miniseries. The first 2 trades of Astonishing X-Men, and then Wanted in trade. So,
oh, nice.
Yeah, so some interesting contest prizes there. So those should be arriving to our contest winners anytime soon. And I got a whole bunch of stuff that I've been kind of pulling from my collection, stuff that I had previously either gotten in hardcover or, I had the singles and I go into trades or something like that. And I figured, let me pull some of this stuff out and I can use it as prizes. Because I'm like, how else am I going to finance prizes? JLA Year 1 was the one, though, that, remember I said I was going to actually purchase a trade from In Stock Trades. That was the one that Eli got for as prize, so that was kind of cool. And I want to thank all our listeners for participating in that. That Ragdoll the Whatnot thing. We'll do something in 2010 early on, another contest, just to get kind of people kind of excited. And
I like seeing just the different ideas that come out, and it's funny, I share it with my family now. Where's Whatnot Now, shared this things, and just this last contest shared with them. And they, my family, they're not comic book readers, but I talk about it enough that they know kind of what I'm talking about. So when I start giving them the new Where's Whatnot Nows, they actually look forward to them and enjoy them.
I like all that stuff, the articles that we're getting on the website and things like that. I love seeing people's thoughts and, their creativity and their sense of humor. It adds to my week. It kind of adds to the whole community aspect of it. I do, you know what, I want to shout out, Donald has not contacted me yet. So Donald, if you hear this, I sent you a couple emails. I want to make sure to get you your contest prize. So I've only got one contest entry that has not gotten back to me yet. So I want to make sure to shout him out and I want to get you your prize. So let me know what you want. Because I gave everybody a list. So we'll go from there. Jim, it was funny, you and I, because of weather here, we're not able to get together, and holidays, obviously, we weren't able to get together this week, so we tried to come up with a quick solution, figuring that we could either record in some mini segments where we could put it together and bundle it as one show, or, depending on how we go tonight, we could record a whole show, depending on how we do it. But we were going to do Preacher, and the reason why we're not is we both agreed that Preacher's a major segment, and it always works much better when we're in person so we can cue each other. So we thought it'd be kind of fun to talk about something like Wonder Woman, for example, where the arc just ended, and I am dying to talk about this because...
Oh my God, yes.
So many cool things with the mythos. I didn't know where this was going to go. I didn't know what Diana's status quo was going to be out of this. It was great because that was the fun for me, was the mystery of where this is going to go. And in true Gail Simone fashion, not only we wrap up one storyline, but there's still dangling elements left there to clue you in that somewhere down the road we're going to get future storytelling from this. And that was the cool thing for me. Not only was there a really cool resolution, this is a complete story that can be read there, but this is what comics are all about for me. It's serialized storytelling. I need to know there were things that happened in this arc that are going to pay off later. It's going to be fun to read. I love that. That's the stuff that gets me, the good writer, and that's why you have a good writer on a long run. Do not do these short runs. Keep good runs with a good long writer, having a good chance to really enjoy. That's what I'm excited about with this. This stuff with Ares that's going to continue later on. This issue, I'm just geeking out like crazy about it.
You're giddy. Giddy.
I am a little giddy.
Oh, dude, man, I'm right along with you. As I was reading this, just it opens up, with just the pregnant Amazons, crawling to Ares. And I love the fact that they went armed. Because they're thinking one of two things. Either I'm going to kill that guy or I'm going to kill this baby inside me because it's his. I thought that was just a cool, just, kind of statement of who the Amazons are, what they're about, what they're going to do. Once again, it's the Amazon, the code of the warrior. I love seeing this and just, just in not even just the story, also the artwork. Just you see the agony, you see just how much determination it's taking for them to crawl there, and and as the one's getting ready, she's got the sword right over her belly, ready to thrust it in there. You can see just the determination on her face. Once again, great writing teamed up with great artwork that all meshes together and matches wonderfully, creates just a woohoo moments.
Aaron Lopresti, Matt Ryan, and Brad Anderson is the art team on this one. It really does look very sharp. I got to comment on the letter or two. This is one of those ones where I noticed the lettering. You know, things like things that were in bold versus being in regular text and just different things to emphasis. I'm trying to pay a little bit more attention to lettering. It's something that I know does something to storytelling for me, and it's no insult to letters. It's my own ignorance on it. I just enjoy the reading it. I enjoy, you know, the atmosphere and mood that you set up. I suppose in many ways it's a compliment because you don't want the lettering to be so obtrusive that you're like, oh, wow, look at that lettering, you know, it's in your face. But I am trying to, you know, go through and do another read through now where I start looking at just different font types used and different backgrounds used for different boxes, and I don't know, it's just, I'm trying to notice little things about it. I admit that this is something that's very new to me, paying attention to lettering, but it is something, it's one of my goals for 2010. I've already got some of my New Year's resolutions is to try and learn more about lettering, because I just don't know anything about it, other than the fact that it does add something to my reading experience. When you're talking about the artwork and the fact that the Amazons were ready to not only kill themselves, but kill the child as well, take it to a different level. These are women who previously could not have children. Yeah. This was something that was alien there. So now all of a sudden they're pregnant. This was something that they were excited about. And that has all been taken away from them to the point, though, I mean, imagine how hard a decision that would be to try and kill yourself and the baby when this is something that you know would never have been an opportunity in any other experience. So what must be going through those Amazons' head? What kind of violation must this be? It's just, woo. And that was something, I think to me, it made the moment even more powerful knowing that they couldn't have children previously.
Well, they recognized that it was evil and what, you know, danger it would be bringing it into the world. So that was something I really was like, wow, that's kind of a, you know, especially you think about, because Ares talks about how these women had prayed to be, you know, to give birth. And this whole story arc dealing with, you know, the dragon, how, you know, Paradise Island was perfect until Diana was introduced into the mix. You know, the central theme of what the circle has going, how much they hate the introduction of the child. And now we have it once again, the continuation of more introduction of children, more problems, you know, kind of caused from that. So I like just the, you know, continuation of previously laid themes, but not exactly, it's not the same. It's just a little bit, you know, working off of it.
You know, I like the fact that goats, rats, and spiders are the ultimate beasts to nurse your children. Who would have thought?
Yeah, now,
forget goats, daycare.
Goats I can see, because, you know, you can. There is goat milk. I don't know about spiders. I don't think spiders have milk because they're...
These goats are very
spiders. Gruff. I mean, what the heck? Where, you know...
These goats are very gruff, though. You take a look at these. These are not happy goats. I don't know that I would leave a child anywhere near these goats. This bit with Alcyon... I got this idea from the last issue that Alcyon saw herself as a patriot of sorts. Mm-hmm. And that was something that I really liked about her, was it wasn't about turning on Paradise Island. It was trying to preserve Paradise Island. And she so strongly believed that, and I think now she's beginning to see that it's more of a selfish thing than a selfless thing. I think before she was willing to sacrifice herself to protect it and saw herself as doing this for all Amazons. Now I think as the story's progressed, we've seen her change in such a way that she's realizing that this is all about her and the Circle. And that they have this idea, and they're willing to actually leave the island with Hippolyta as the storyline goes on. And I liked that change and that shift, that she has learned something about herself and has accepted it, which was interesting.
See, I took it more, she still has the, you know, she's a fanatic, you know, flat and true definition of a fanatic is right there looking at her. Whereas the rest of the Circle has started, you know, by the end of this issue, has started seeing the light saying, hey, maybe we misjudged her. I don't see...
She did. Because there's, I'm going to adamantly disagree with you on this, because one of the things I like, Alcyon will not admit it publicly, but there's bits where she slips and almost calls Diana princess instead of dragon, which is something she never would have done before. She's seeing it. She won't... Now, I do agree with you that she's not going to outwardly show that, but internally, she's seeing it, and she does not know how to deal with it. Because she did. There's one specific bit, and we'll talk about it when we get to it, where she slips and almost calls her princess. And I guarantee you at the beginning of this whole bit, she would have never done that. She was always the dragon.
Yeah, she was always dragon, abomination, you know, whatever various terms you could use for... you know, Diana, that she used. So, yeah.
I think it's why we saw her previously in previous appearances so much more controlled. And we're seeing her now And I agree with, when you're saying fanatic, I agree with you. We're seeing her slip more and more into that because what her plan and her goals, her plans, I should say, and goals, because she's had multiple ones since her initial appearance, are not paying off. They aren't going the way she wants to. And she's doing everything she can to recover. And she's willing to settle, like I said at the end of this, before the whole goal was to restore Paradise Island, to restore Themyscira to her ideal for Themyscira. With Hippolyta as the queen, she doesn't want that role. It's not about her being in charge. It's about restoring things. And she is willing to die for that. And that does go back to your fanaticism that you're talking about. You're 100% correct on that. I do think the interesting thing about her, though, is we're seeing that she is willing to give all of that up, and as long as she can take Hippolyta and start somewhere else. Which is another sign of being a fanatic, though.
I can see that, But I tell you, one of the things I did like, we got this opening segment with her and just her and Diana just naturally just going back and forth. The one line when she says, "I would kill 100 Amazons if needed." If you look at her, you can see tears running down her. She's actually shedding tears as she's saying this. And I thought that, for me, was a very powerful scene. And it's not even like a full-page spread. It's one of those boom, 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 because you have this couple series of panels right there. And right there, you just look, you see the tears coming down. I'm like, that was like a wow.
See, and here's how I took this. I agree with you. It's a powerful moment. Diana is calling her on her actions. And Diana's pointing out to her, because she started out at the beginning of this. She started out very much in the Circle arc as a patriot, and that was her goals were, to preserve the island. She no longer has those goals. It's about being right no matter what. It's about winning no matter what. To the point where she sacrificed someone close to her just to handle all this. And Diana's calling her on that. To call this thing to me, you made this blood sacrifice, and she's lashing out. That's what the tears are of rage of her lashing out, trying to make it seem like she's. I think at this point, Alkion is protesting too much. I think she's lashing out in rage, and because Diana doesn't see it. She wants her to see it. She wants everybody to see it, and she's realizing right now that they've all realized she's horribly wrong. The entire Amazon community realizes that she's wrong, and deep down internally, I think Alkion does too. I think Alkion sees it at this point. She won't admit it outwardly, and that goes back, I think, to your fanaticism, is the fact that people who have gone so far and gone to those extremes will never be able to publicly admit, and even one-on-one, I don't know that they would admit that deep down they were wrong. Because that means that every action they took, every line that they've crossed, they are now responsible for, and they were wrong. Think about everything she's done just since we've first been introduced to this character. Could you imagine her admitting, I was wrong? That means now she needs to take ownership that every single move she made that she justified for the purpose of being a patriot, for the purpose of saving Themyscira, quote unquote, now is wrong. And she took actions that were horrible injustices on her people instead of being sacrifices that were, she's lashing out here saying, I would have killed 100 if needed because you never should have been born. This was all wrong. You were wrong. You were an abomination. Yet I don't think she believes that anymore. Deep down at the core, I think she's begun to see, like the rest of the circle, and I agree with you, the rest of the circle, we do see them vocalize that, wait a minute, maybe we were wrong about her all along. Look at how these people love her. I think Alkion sees that too. I do. I don't think, and I don't know, and I'll take it to this step, I don't know that she can admit it to herself either. Not only she can't admit it to the rest of the circle, I think she sees it deep down, but could not even admit it to herself. Which is adding to the rage. It's adding to this emotion. Fanatics are like that. They will bury it so deep that they can't even admit it to themselves. And it would be, that's what I loved about it. It felt so real.
Yeah, she's like a liberal. She won't admit when she's wrong. And that is a joke, by the way, for all the various liberal people. Don't start yelling at me. Mm-hmm. I'm kidding.
Extremist of the whatnots, Zegulin.
Oh yeah, I'm going to get some emails on this one.
This was interesting though because I didn't see this playing out with the father figure the way that it did.
No!
I guess or the Play-Doh that she was cut from, however you want to take it. I liked that. Though it was interesting to see that this was an entity of. It adds to the whole mythological aspect.
And this creature actually does exist in real Greek mythology.
Mm-hmm.
So that's once again, Gail Simone doing her research and coming up with the true creatures, and they just pulling it all together. So I was like, yay!
As I was reading this, it's funny. I read this issue, and I started thinking to myself, I've been talking a lot about how I'd love to see a Wonder Woman movie. I think it would work. I think you and I, because of the animated feature especially, are thinking, geez, this really would work on the big screen. Taking it one step further, okay, if they don't want to go big screen with it, I'm playing the God of War collection for my PS3. They took the original 2 PlayStation 2 God of War games, and in preparation for the third game, they put these things in HD, and they re-released them. So I'm going through and I'm playing them. I played the first one previously. The reason why it's relevant is this is all mythology-based with this guy Kratos who has these blades, and the whole premise is that he's working for the gods, and he earns powers from the gods along the way. He gets handed, things from Poseidon, from, just various different, because I've got the PSP game too. I love the series, but it's all steeped in this. I'm watching her fight this creature, and I'm like, tell me this wouldn't be a cool video game moment. You got to hack its arms off and stuff like that. I mean, what a boss battle this would be in a video game. Wonder Woman is so geared for a video game. I don't get it. Like, why and I'm hoping this is something that, Wonder Woman's a big enough name, I would think. But if you do the right trailer for this character in a video game, people are going to buy it.
Well, here's the thing I always wonder with this, and it's because it's a female lead, will the preteen, the young kids, will they go out and buy something that the female has a female lead?
Tomb Raider.
Oh,
the whole series of Tomb Raider, it led from a video game to a movie, not from a movie to a video game. It was because the video game series was so popular. It took it. Now, here's an issue. Why did the Tomb Raider series? There was a few games in the middle that were stinkers, and because of that, it kind of lost its luster. But I got to be honest with you. It was a sexy female character who was strong, interesting to play, and it made for an interesting storytelling dynamic. Tomb Raider was a hot game series when it first came out. The first 2 to 3 games especially did very well. So, a female lead in a video game is a lot more acceptable than in, I would say in a film. I disagree with it in a film as well. I think a female lead is going to do very well in a film. I just think that they're less likely to take that risk now, and I have seen some of those elements, from some of our listeners have pointed that out. Okay, fine, go the video game route. Mm-hmm. Video games have done very well with female leads.
Well, one of the reasons I mention it is because, when I start talking comic books at work, I have had, people make little snide comments about Wonder Woman and all that. You read a girl's comic like that, and I go immediately. That's the opening for me just to go in super geek mode, and I just start talking about how awesome Wonder Woman is, and just with the whole mythology, the whole cool story aspects of it. I'm like, they're really fleshing out the character and making her worthy of being a member of the Trinity. And of course, I go a little bit longer than I need to at work just because it's me, but it's still. This is somebody who probably hasn't read a comic book. He's not a current reader. He's not a current collector or anything like that. Maybe when he was a kid, he read some comics, but he just made the little snide off comment. And granted, he wasn't trying to be mean. It was just more of, just goofing around, what we do at work. So, but there is an element of, that's what got me thinking, is there an element of that truth? I know when I was a kid, mm-hmm. I fully admit, when I was a kid, I wouldn't have probably read Wonder Woman because I wouldn't want people seeing me carrying around a girl comic book.
Okay, going back to what you said, though, the first comment you made when I said that, would your preteen audience pick up Wonder Woman? When you were a teenager, if they put out a video game with a sexy girl in it, it was powerful, where she kicked serious butt. You watch shows like Xena and stuff like that, right?
Yeah, I watched Xena, but not, it was more of a, but Xena.
But you don't have to tell people.
What?
See, here's the thing. You're worried about the outward stigma. Mm-hmm. Tomb Raider. Do you know how many people bought Tomb Raider?
Yeah.
And played Tomb Raider? Do you think they told everybody who played Tomb Raider, went around and told people that at work that they were playing Tomb Raider? I got news for you. There are people your age and my age when Tomb Raider was hot that were playing Tomb Raider. Wonder Woman's the same thing. Not everybody's gonna tell people at work. You and I are, and a lot of our listeners are a little outside the norm in the sense that we don't care I'll admit stuff to people now that I do that, and honestly, this show and podcasting and forums and talking about comics, I'm a lot more outward on the things that I enjoy now, which has been one of the great benefits of doing this. But God, when I was growing up, would I have bought a Wonder Woman game? Absolutely. And the stigma of it, you just don't tell people. It's gonna say you don't have to tell people you own the video game.
But here's the thing. Because I'm thinking of myself, and I know when I was a kid, I wasn't, as, confident with, as I am now with who I am and talking. G.I. Joe, the action figures, had all the action figures, but I never bought the Scarlet or the Cover Girl.
You gotta be kidding me.
I never bought those figures. People
I did.
bought them for me, but I when I was in the store and I had to pick one action figure, I couldn't reach for the girl character. I had to reach for a guy, even if I already had one. I'd grab a second. I'd grab another Cobra guy, and it's me. It's weird. I admit. I don't know. There was just something like I can't have a doll. I can have an action figure, but I can't have a doll.
See, and I think we see things a little differently with this because I've seen Bad Girl comics have done well. There's all kinds of things with women that in lead roles that have done very, very well. With video games, honestly, nowadays with your video game audience, it has to be good. You can get away with a mediocre game that has like a sexy female lead or a cool looking male character, but it's only going to go so far. You're not going to get a franchise out of it. God of War, the reason why it's so successful, Kratos could have been a girl. I'm sorry. That character could have easily been a girl. It's because the game's good. It looks cool. I guarantee you the game would have sold just as well if the character was a badass-looking girl. And I mean, she'd have to be badass that would fit the role that Kratos is currently in. Wonder Woman could have been easily plopped in that. I mean, and when I say Wonder Woman, I'm not saying plop her right into the costume. Actually go through the whole contest, go through everything, have her earn. You can play with the story a little bit and have her earn, like some of the stuff we saw in Wednesday's comics, for example, where we saw her go through that like dream world, searching for the different parts that would later be her outfit.
Yeah.
You could do stuff like that, make it more Elseworldsy, where, she would actually, have to get those elements and fight things on Themyscira or fight, Agents of the Gods or something like that. I'm throwing this randomly off my head, so this isn't a very coherent thought, but I'm just saying there's a lot of ways when you're writing a video game storyline where you can stick to the core of the Diana mythos, but make levels that would make sense as a video game as well, where you would please the comic book fans, but then make it more open to a more universal audience. I wouldn't necessarily put her in costume right away. You could have her build to that, make that interesting. It'd be fun to see her fighting on the island and that type of thing. There's a lot you could do.
And me nowadays, yes, I would buy that. But I'll being completely honest. When I was a kid, I don't know if I would. Just like I never got into the Tomb Raider stuff, but I really wasn't gaming when that was big. So I can't say yes or no. But I don't know.
How much action gaming do you do though?
Well, now,
yes.
Very little. I got my City of Heroes right now mostly, and that's it.
Right, that's what I'm saying. So I mean, you're not...
Yes, but as you're talking, I'm like, yeah, that'd be a cool game. I could see that would be a neat thing.
Blood Rain. The Blood Rain game series, for example. Female vampire lead. Did well.
Yeah.
Especially the first one. I don't know how well the second one did. I know the first one was a hit. I mean, enough that it generated a second game. So, I mean, there's lots... I mean, I'm... throwing this off the top of my head.
Maybe it's different now. Maybe, sure, it's different nowadays. That'd be great to see. I know right now, me personally would enjoy it now. So if there is a market out there, that'd be cool.
I think gaming's the better entry point to show that it's a viable tool. Because I was reading this whole storyline and thinking how a lot of this could be a very cool level to a video game. I mean, tell me fighting, men invading Themyscira.
Yeah.
Wouldn't be cool. And this big beast being part of it, you could use elements of this as the basis. This arc could be a good video game. It really could.
The circle storyline could be, this would, from beginning to end would be outstanding.
That's what I'm saying. And I would set it on Themyscira. I would start with that because I think that's in your sequel games, you could branch more into her maybe being more of a superhero. Mm-hmm. but I would stick to more of this core element, this Themyscira element, because I do think there is a link to games like God of War and Wonder Woman where that would be your entry point. How do we make Wonder Woman cool? How do we make it a step-on point for today's audience? That game's selling huge. You've got a link there, an archetype that people are interested in, where you can throw out commercials that will feel very familiar to people that are in this like incredibly high-selling video game. I mean, it's sold well enough that they've re-released it now in HD years later. You know what I'm saying? I mean, that's you don't do that for every game. To go re-release another bundle set of a game to like do that. When I was playing it, I happened to be reading this issue and I just picked it up and I was playing the game and then I went and read this and I went and reread it again and I'm like, oh my God, this would be, I mean, Achilles could be a playable character.
Dude,
so you could have a male and a female character.
Achilles has been an outstanding character through this, and talk about character growth.
Mm-hmm.
This is definitely another character that, throughout since his introduction, we're getting bits and pieces, and it's just growing. And last issue where we really see him confront the fact that he knows he's being played, to this one where he's actually physically throwing down with the circle. I loved those sequences when he's just, throwing down. He's got arrows sticking out of his back. Then Alcyon just chucks the spear right through him completely. I was like, holy crud. That kind of, when he was sitting there beating on him, saying, I am Achilles, as he's hitting him, and she throws the spear, I was expecting
the line's great, though. Oh, do be quiet.
Yeah.
This is so great.
Now, I was thinking she was going to throw it at the ankle. The
Achilles heel?
Yeah, the proverbial weakness of Achilles. Mm-hmm. Is that in continuity or not? But when it just goes right through his chest, I was just like, wow.
Well, I would assume it's in continuity, but she didn't want to kill him. Gale didn't, I'm saying.
Yeah,
you want him around still. So, I mean, I would imagine if you go there with it, Achilles is done.
Probably.
Yeah.
I'm guessing that, but it's...
Did you see, I took it immediately. I didn't think he was dead. That's what I loved about it. When I saw it through there, I'm like, she didn't get the heel.
Yeah.
I'm like, how cool. This guy's going to get back up.
Yeah. I was waiting for the scene where he pulls it out of him going, okay, let's dance.
Yeah. Did you, now, when this arc started, I know we talked about this previously, I did not see this guy being somebody that I was going to be into or that I think of as a hero. I wanted Diana to beat the tar out of him. Now I'm like rooting for him. Talk about an emotional change for a character. I really like this guy.
The one confrontation that we saw initially between him and Diana, mm-hmm. when he was able to recognize she was a warrior of honor, and he even questioned Zeus, saying, hey, shouldn't we be helping her against genocide? Right there, I'm like, okay, this guy's going to be around for a while. This guy is going to be a pretty cool character. And that's where I kind of started thinking it would be neat to see him and Diana team up, and him and Diana, kind of, act as, I was thinking originally like a king and queen or, prince and princess or something of Themyscira. I was kind of thinking that way, especially last issue where, we really see him, go to her and say, hey, I need your help. I admit when I'm wrong, kind of thing. So I was kind of thinking like this could be kind of a neat thing here. These two would be a nice tag team combo.
And I like that about it. I like that there's been a gradual transition where I've warmed up to a guy that initially on his first appearance, I'm like, beat him up so bad. Because I just wanted to see her do it. And now I'm really into the character. And that's what I was saying when I was using the video game example before. Going on your worry, for example, like that. You could do a Wonder Woman video game where you have Achilles as a playable character. You could do that and go that route. And, it's a great way to introduce her. It's a great way to introduce him. You could do a storyline like that and get away with it. I'm just throwing out examples of there's ways to do that and introduce this character in a way where you can get people used to and comfortable with her mythos. I just think it's a gold mine because I think female characters have been ones because there's something different. They do attract a more diverse audience, especially when there's something sexy about them, yet powerful at the same time. That there is something there, and people tend to sometimes protest too much, or they tend to make fun of something that they don't want to admit that they're intrigued by. And I think that's the case. People don't understand Wonder Woman, the general audience. So a lot of what you're talking about at work, where people will, rip on some of those things, it's because they don't get Wonder Woman. They don't understand her. She's not somebody that is in the media like some of the other heroes. We talked about on Comic Timing's 100th episode, we talked about iconic characters. And one of the things about Diana, the last time that she was really heavily in the public eye was in the 70s with her TV show and Super Friends.
Yeah.
The JLU cartoon you can make an argument for, but I think that is more still the hardcore comic book audience that was watching that versus I think Super Friends and the Wonder Woman TV series with Linda Carter was a little bit more widespread at the time. So I do think she's a character as far as understanding who she is today and understanding her mythos so steeped in mythology. I don't think people, the general public, have a grasp of that. And I think that she is a character that has a lot wider appeal than anyone realizes. I do think she is a character that could be one of those breakthrough female characters today, in a contemporary sense. She has been in the past, so I'm not discounting any of that. I'm talking about today. I think it's a crying shame that this character is not more in the public eye because I think she is cool. I think she's a lot less risky of a proposition than people think. And I think she has the potential to be a moneymaker because she's something different. People are looking for that. They're looking for something unique. And I do think that it is something that I want to see her somehow break through. Gaming is one of the I'm like, and I'm not saying that's the answer. There's lots of different possibilities, but obviously they're gun shy with a film, so consider a game. I mean, you'll have to come over and play God of War, and you'll see what I mean. Yeah. Like the second you start playing this game, I'm not saying that you aren't. I'm just saying for anybody that's played this game, I think that they're kind of looking at me. They're kind of like thinking right now. You're right. You could plop her into that game. And with very little tweaks to the storytelling, you could make it a Wonder Woman game that is very cool. Where, you could put her in a battle armor. You could do, the battle armor look of Diana. I do think, as far as as you always talk about that might be something that would be more of a more universal, acceptable appearance, the battle armor look instead of the traditional outfit. This game and its environment, it's very dark. But not anything that's any darker than we've seen in some of the Wonder Woman storytelling. She's one of those characters that skirts both of those lines, where you could do something really dark and have her go into there without it being outside. It's not like if you plop Superman in that storyline. You couldn't put him in that. He wouldn't fit. He's too bright a character. This kind of revamping Superman to make his movies a little bit darker, you don't get Superman if you're doing that. Wonder Woman you can do that with, though, and you're not altering the character. She fits. You can do things like that with her. This is a dark story right here we're reading, and that's what I love about her.
It's funny because we talked a little bit about her, and we're still with just Artemis. I loved her in this series, and just this whole, as it's going on, Achilles is dead, Wonder Woman, the princess is in danger, and I just love just seeing them swarm. First the Amazons and then the Olympians, and they all just flock. And that was just this cool hoorah moment for me, seeing just the rally around the princess.
Artemis,
she's been pulled under. We have to go. I love that stuff.
And that's one of the things you're right here with this moment with Artemis. You can see why people would follow her. Mm-hmm. And I loved, Diana's commentary about her, how she's probably one of those people, she's not the dinner guest, meaning that she's not the person you're always going to want to hang out with. But yet, when you're in these type of dire situations, there's no gray area with Artemis. There's right and there's wrong. She'll make mistakes. She'll goof up horribly in some of her choices that she'll make at times. But there's always a passion and emotion about it and a conviction behind what she does. And she doesn't waver. She is who she is, and she tries to do what she believes is the right thing at that moment. And this is a great example of that. She's willing to give up her life here. And I think she's convinced at this moment that this is potentially a suicide mission. But I'm going to do it anyway because this is who, and I don't even think it's even, there's not a whole lot of internal dialogue going on. She is a force of nature at this moment, which is just so cool about her.
And I really dig when she's just charging, Alkion's sitting there getting ready to fight and no one's fighting her.
What? Fight us!
Fight us, and they're just running right past her because that's a nothing. Alkion is now a nothing to him. Only the princess matters. And when, when Jason, goes on with her and we're coming with you, I love there was a second hesitation. And then she's like, come along, man-at-arms. It's an honor to die with you today.
Specifically, though, it is my honor to die with you today.
Yes.
And it's fellow warriors of the battlefield meeting each other with respect. And it is interesting to see how these Amazons and Olympians, do you think you're going to see them, I don't know how this is going to work, is Themyscira going to be female only after this? Or is that going to change? What do you think is going to happen?
It's co-ed now. Themyscira is now co-ed. We see it. We saw it with Sir Thomas of Cleveland. He was made an Amazon. So men can become Amazons. They weren't before. And the reason there weren't men on the island was because of all the problems that the Amazons had with the men betraying and enslaving and imprisoning and all that stuff. Well, now we have a group of men who were brought to the island, who have now learned, if you will, the code of the Amazon. They've learned the way of the warrior, the way of the peaceful, warrior. But if I need to, I'm going to throw down with you. It's that meshing of, diplomat and warrior and, compassion and fire, that makes these Amazons so cool. We now have guys who will get it. They understand what it means to be an Amazon, especially in these battle sequences as it's playing out. Achilles gets it. The other Mamazons, the other Olympians, they get it. They know what it's like.
What is a Mamazon?
Mamazon.
You said ma'am, M-A-M.
Yeah, I know. I meant to say Mamazon. Come on. Cut me some slack, all right?
No, there's no slack to that. Mamazons. Olympians works for me at this point, or whatever they are. The fellas. The fellas. Just call them the guys.
Well, sometimes I call them Argonauts. I've called them a couple of different things as I'm reading this. And they are the Olympians, and that's the technical term. But for some reason, I don't know. I want to call them Amazons. But I don't know if I can say, have a male be a true Amazon.
Well, we haven't seen yet.
I think they are. I don't know if we're going to have a new term or if they'll all be Amazons.
Well, we don't know where this is going yet. That's what I love. Like, we get a nice wrap-up to this storyline, but there's so many unanswered questions, and I love that. See, to me, that's what's interesting is I want to read more because I want to see where this goes. Are the men going to stay? Are they going to choose to start up their own colony? Because I don't think it's set in stone the men are staying. I think it's a very good possibility. I agree with you. I mean, I think that's on the table, but I don't think it has to be that way. I think it's going to be interesting to see how it all plays out. And if they do stay, what is that going to look like? So it's funny, like you're trying to come up with a label right now. That's the interesting part is part of the reason why you can't is we don't know what this is going to look like. Mm-hmm. And I think those are questions that it's going to be fun to see how that all plays out. Either way, I'll take it any way right now. And that's what I like about Wonder Woman right now is I am so interested in not just in the arc, but in where it's going to lead. There's always something else going on. There's always undertones of future events. There's always undertones of things I want to know what's going to go on with the Gorgon Gorillas.
Yeah, well.
No, I mean, I know we see them in this, but I mean, any gorilla appearance for me, I like them so much now that I'm just like, okay, well, I hope they somehow play into the storytelling later. Maybe they'll hang out and they'll stay and maybe they'll become the new Circle. I don't know. More gorillas.
It's funny you said that's exactly what I was kind of thinking was going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
They would become the new Circle, which I was hoping because I'm in agreement with you. The talking gorillas are awesome. I love them in their intro, and since every time they pop up, I'm always worried that we're going to lose a gorilla because we've already lost one to genocide, and that was a noble death, and that was a good, that was a warrior's death. So I was very, pleased in that, but sad in that I lost a good friend there. So I want to see them. It's funny. I want to see them safe and protected, but I want to see them being used, which means they get put in harm's way. So it's I don't know. I can't,
I'd like to find out they're immortal gorillas. The only way to really kill them is to chop their heads off or something.
There can be only one.
Right, exactly. Yeah, that'll be fine. They're Highlander gorillas. This bit with Diana where she's fighting that part of herself, it's funny how we see the honor of Amazons and how they deal with violations to themselves in the beginning of this. It kicks off. She's going through so much of what the women were going through in the beginning, where they were pregnant with this, Lord knows what, because of Ares. Now Diana's finding out that she is, or this thing is, part of her. There's a connection there. Am I really this? Is this really part of who I am? And how do you deal with that? And we see her strength there, because this thing's like, cease your struggle and return to me. And cease my struggle. You must really not know me at all, creature. I never cease. Those moments are just so awesome, because we just see her kick it up a notch. And that's where she gets her inner strength from. And there's always something about Wonder Woman, even though we know she's super powerful and she's one of those characters that can go toe-to-toe with Superman, there's this emotional vulnerability with her, but then we see her dig inside, and she has more internal strength than I think most heroes do. And it's those rally cry moments of Wonder Woman are where I really am like, this is something that's special about her, is that you can push her down, but always, at some point in time, she is going to, at the lowest point, and I'm not saying this is one of the lowest points for her, but we've seen her do this at her lowest point, where she, at her core, pulls something out. There's something that sparks that thing that's at her core that makes her a hero. And we see her pull this out. Now, I love these moments. It's just something about her that I've come to appreciate more and more, where I'm so Wonder Woman happy at the moment. And
you talked about lettering. Once again, that I never cease. It's got the star accentuating on it. It's a little bit, it's a script I kind of, a little bit different than the previous stuff and the other stuff on the page. So once again, boom, we see that occasionally with Diana. We see the star there. And I do like that's how, a lot of times it's, those hoorah moments for her. We have these accentuates on them.
It takes me back a little bit to the 70s show.
Yeah.
With the stars on that. I mean, without getting cheesy, it skirts that nice line where it's definitely something that's clearly Diana, and you can feel that's an iconic Diana thing, the star, having that there and that yellow, goldish look, and that's something that really worked for me. I just this whole visual presentation of this book, it is a very, very pretty book. It has been. The whole art team and the lettering, it's really a book that is a great example of writer, art, everybody, editorial, whatever, all meshing together to make something that's special and fun. And it's one of the reasons why I would not drop this book. This will tell you the compliment I'm going to get right now. This is my Hawkman right now. I don't have a Hawkman book right now. This is my Hawkman book. This is my character who is kind of outside. I'm a Batman guy. That's my one that I've always got to follow Batman and all that stuff. But who is my cool character that I'm following right now? It's Wonder Woman. Wonder Woman is just this cool. And this is what I got when I was reading the Hawkman run with Gray and Palmiotti, and when Johns was kicking that off. And why was Hawkman so cool? This book's given me that right now. It's month after month. I grab this book when it comes out first. Because it's just, if you're not reading Wonder Woman right now, and you're like, I'm not reading because it's a girl character, I just never been into Wonder Woman right now, start picking up this book, because it's darn cool. It really is. This character is just, I am so digging this book.
Yeah, and once again, another art moment, where we're talking about where Alcyon kind of slips up and almost calls Diana the princess. Mm-hmm. Even going through that sequence, you see when the Circle start questioning her, maybe we were wrong all along. She does kind of have that little bow in the head. You see the eyes a little bit lowered as she's starting to believe it. Then, bam, she rages back up and she's like, no, we are right. This, she is the Abomination.
There's no place for us here anymore. Yeah. So I think what she's seen at this point, I agree with what you're saying, but there's a distinction at this point. She's realized that they're the only ones that see it. And I think to a certain extent she's trying to latch on to at least, okay, if I can't get the rest of the Amazons on board, maybe I can get the Circle. If we take Hippolyta out of here now while I've still got them with me, maybe we can start up our ideal somewhere else. We've got a last-ditch chance here to start this up somewhere else. She's scrambling, panicked at this point.
Oh yeah, big time. And it's one of those moments where it is hard to admit when you're wrong sometimes. And even just for a normal person to admit, she's extreme end of it. So she's really going to be fighting at it. And I like seeing just that slight hesitation, which would be normal for anybody to have that hesitation. She's being presented with overwhelming evidence that she was wrong, and she still can't admit to it. And I thought that was just a cool moment and just a cool bam kind of time. And it could very easily be she's protesting too much. She knows in her heart she was wrong. It's pride. She can't, let it go.
It's more than pride. It's shame at this point. The atrocities she's committed I'm talking about a reluctance to even face the possibility that there's even shame to be had. There is a definite distinction between her and the rest of the circle. And it's great when you were talking about before how the fanaticism and all that. I do not think if we were her strongest confidant, if we had talked to her point blank about our concerns, one-on-one, she still would not admit it. Because I don't think she's capable of admitting it. She wouldn't admit it to herself. But I think it's there. We see the chinks in the armor, and I love that. That's human about her. That's one of the things I love about this book. It's not just Diana. Diana's fantastic in this. But she's more fantastic because of the supporting cast, because of these additional characters, because it's so interesting to see what Alcyon's going to do. I actually care about reading Alcyon's story here. This was a great issue because it was fun to follow her. What is going on in her head? I actually care about thinking about what she's thinking and trying to wrap my head around her. And we could probably debate Alcyon for hours on in and of herself. And then go off to additional members of the circle, depending on where obviously, you and I got hooked on Alcyon at the moment, but there are multiple characters in this issue that we could have this same depth-filled discussion on because they're so fleshed out. They've been so well developed, and they weren't just in for one arc. They've been in for multiple arcs. We've got to see them in a variety of situations. We've gotten to know these characters. This is what a great comic run's all about. You need to have a writer on for long enough to do this stuff. Why is talk about another book by Gail Simone. Why is Secret Six so cool? Because we know those characters. Why are, a lot of Jeff Johns' books, why are they, the ones that we're all latching onto right now? We've gotten to see a nice run, a nice long development. Batman's really cool about that. Superman's becoming cool again. Booster Gold. These are all characters because the writers have had runs on them. We know these characters because they know them a certain way. They have a direction plan for them. They know where they're going to go after a certain amount of time. Not just them, but the supporting cast. And that's it to me. If you've got a supporting cast that you don't care about, the book's very two-dimensional then. It doesn't start to jump out of the page at you because you really know one character, but the rest of them seem very flat. There's nobody flat in this.
No.
Even Dad. And he's only had 2 issues. The Play-Doh Dad. I did love this bit when Achilles finally pulled the spear out. I saw it coming. Yes. It wasn't a shock for me, but that's the great thing. Build up to something, and then when you have that moment, just have some great dialogue. No, enough blood, enough treachery. I killed you, male swine. About that wife. When puncturing the vital organs of an enemy, perhaps you should not choose a heart that once belonged to a god. Again, lettering here, though, the emphasis on that, and it's one of those things where I'm like, you know what, this is a great example of how lettering just works. The bold emphasis on certain words to give you that power in those moments, and that, it comes across really, really well here. It's a good-looking book for this. And then,
that was, you know what? That was another cool moment because you see him. He puts the helmet back on. He's fully armed. He's got the bloodied / energized spear, and that was one of those another just moments where I started thinking like, she punctured the heart of the god, and that got me, of course, thinking of if he lives through this, which I figured he was going to. We still have this whole story of the daughter of that god. What did Diana promise promise her? There's still a whole nother story arc that hasn't even been brought up again since it was last seen, when we last saw her. And now we're seeing Diana and Achilles starting to work together. I'm like, is she going to have a conflict? what's going to happen there. That's when I started thinking, oh my God, we even have another story that still is yet to be played out.
You know, when we get to these pages with the underwater scenes, a great example of artwork where finding a right balance to make it feel like it's underwater but not losing who the characters are. Because you've got to wash out Brad Anderson on colors here, great example of, you have to wash them out enough that it looks like that they're in a different environment, that they're actually surrounded by something other than air. You know, because if they look too bold, if they looked as dynamic as they do on the surface, we got a real big problem.
Right.
Because the illusion's now non-existent. But it works here. And also, you know, with the penciling and inking, if you take a look, you know, the way the hair's flowing and things like that, it's really interesting. That's something where, you know, I like doodling, I like sketching. I'm a terrible artist. But it's one of the areas where I am a terrible artist is if I try to draw somebody in a different environment, I'm horrible at it.
Yeah.
You know, as far as just getting that right. I like, you know, and that's where I just recognize that this is just a fun hobby thing for me. I don't have the patience to practice enough to really experiment with different environments like that, like obviously this creative team has done over time. They've developed their own style of how to show certain environments like this. You know, we see Diana in the water. We see fighting going on in the water with the men and the women and things like that. All characters that we've seen on the surface, all identifiable in the other environment. But yet we see Diana come splashing out of the water. Her hair has taken on a different sheen, a different appearance, because she's just come from water, so it's matted down a little bit more, and, you know, the water spraying off it and things like that. But then the color, again, is more vibrant and dynamic than even the scene in the panel above it with the shark, which I thought was just really cool. The lasso was awesome there.
A great delivery, you know, of the lasso tour. And was I the only one who really geeked out when the men started doing the cross arms, you know, as the sign to Diana? I geeked out over that, you know, because you see
showing
Artemis
loyalty
do it naturally, but then you see, you know, the very next panel, you see, you know, Jason do the same thing, crossed arms. I was like, yes.
Respect, loyalty. Well, this is a warrior on the battlefield now who has, if she can start turning the circle, if she's that inspiring on the battlefield, you better darn well believe you're going to see it with the men as well.
Yeah.
And because they don't have the hatred that Alcyon and her crew has built up over the years. Diana has taken people that hated her. You know, the rest of the members of the Circle, the ones that are wavering, okay, yeah, they may be questioning things a bit, but they wanted to kill her too.
Yeah.
So you got Jason. Jason never wanted to do that. So for this guy, yeah, okay, another fellow, Achilles was willing to die for her. So you better darn well believe if my leader's going to die for her, I'm willing to stand there and fulfill. That's another thing too. It not only shows loyalty to Diana, it shows how much Achilles meant to him and how much respect he had for Achilles, because he's also willing to honor, as were the rest of the men, Achilles' wishes, because he came out there fighting for Diana, and they saw that. They saw him willing to die for that. And this is somebody who they respect in his conviction. For them to sit there and say that, okay, I'm on board. So it's more than even just their own, which I agree with you. Their own is definitely just as strong a part of it. But that's like, kicked up to 11. And that's what I love about it. It's just great. It's a great dynamic moment. Now we fight in my element. And just to see the battles going on, and this is great artwork as well, because you see the battles still going on the ground, where you see Alcyon still there with Achilles.
Yeah, and it was...
The sacrifice is still there as well.
Yeah, well, yeah, and it's, I like seeing how we had the broad picture of Diana and the creature, but in the background, but you could still make out enough of the details, you know exactly what's what, where it fits into place. I thought that was just I was like, yeah, cool.
Then we finally...
I like looking with one of the things I like looking at with Wonder Woman is the background. Mm-hmm. I like looking around the outskirts of any of the imaging, because there's gonna be these little attention to detail, and that's something that we've really, really liked about Wonder Woman. When just you appreciate the artwork and appreciate the effort they're going into. It would have been probably a lot easier just to draw the big splash of Wonder Woman with the creature, and you can put a little accents with the water. That would be look cool. But to go that one step beyond and put in the background battle, put in the extra, the little oomph, added on to it.
We've talked to Freddie Williams before. He talks about establishing shots. And then how you need to, after a certain number of panels, revisit certain things to remind people. And these are great moments where in this was a great panel to remind everyone of what is still going on with Achilles and the group. And it is something that we need as readers. We need to be pulled back into, like you said, this global story that's still going on. There are more elements going on here. And it's great sense of, this is a script eventually. It's one of the things I liked with Marv Wolfman when I went to the convention. And I'd love to see, I'm sure writers are probably different as far as how much they want their scripts out there because they probably got their own style and they like their, as far as privacy and their own thing. But I've always been a fan of these director's cut comics where they have like the Final Crisis one and things like that where they have the script in the back. I'd love to see that in an issue of Wonder Woman. Like a director's cut of one of the issues where it had along with it some sketch material where we could see like, the layouts, the inks, and then the colors. But also script material to see how like that all came to be, because I think that stuff's all kind of cool to me. It's because I'm not going to ever be that person. As far as I'm always the audience. I love reading comics. I love enjoying comics. I'm not going to be a comic creator, but I like seeing how it all comes about, like I do with movies. It's fun in movies to go back, and I'm enjoying Heroes right now. I'm going through season 1, and I'm watching the commentaries, which some are with the writers, some are with production staff, some are with producers, some are with the actors, and they're giving us like really in-depth behind the scenes. It's not just them talking about the episode. On a number of the episodes, they actually break down what it's like to create an episode of Heroes or a season of Heroes, and what each of the jobs are of people, whether they're people directly involved with the production of the episode or behind the scenes making sure that everything flows together and how there's multiple units creating it. I like that kind of stuff. I'd love to know what it was like, what did the editor do? And how did that relationship work in all this? Those are things that like I'm enjoying it in Cry for Justice right now. Those little little
at the end,
yeah. I mean,
a little extra something, just gives you a little bit more of a, it's not just your traditional story. Let's get a little bit behind. Let's tear down the fourth wall a little bit and peek behind the curtain.
You can't do it all the time. You're trying to keep monthly books going out and all that type of thing. But I do.
I want it every single issue. I want it all the time.
You know what? The funny part is, I 100%. I know you're joking. Deep down, I agree with you. I'd love it to be every issue. But see, we're more anyway. I'd like, I want this book to be weekly. That would be my ultimate choice. But seeing as we can't have any of that, I would like to, though, like writer spotlights or things like that. Writer spotlights, artist spotlights, things like that. It was something I liked about Solo. The different concepts and different ways of us as readers getting to know the creative teams on a more of a personal level. I think that's one of the nice things that comic creators are doing now. I think they are reaching out more to the audience. I think that a lot more of them are accessible either online or, letters or, like what Robinson's doing right now in Cry for Justice. I think they're trying different ways to connect with their audience base. And I think that's kind of cool because I do think that builds loyalty. I do think as we get to know them, we want to follow their work, any of their work that they're doing. And I like that. I mean, that to me is, you've got a personal investment in the person as well as the product. As I do, I don't just follow characters, I follow creators. And I think it's nice. I mean, there are certain characters that I'll read everything with that character in it, but I also have certain creators that I will read everything that the creator does. And that goes for art, that goes for writing, that, it's going for color work now too. The more I'm getting into colorists, I like seeing them on different titles. David Barron's a great example. Art Lyon, Alan Pasalacqua. These are guys, we've gotten to know through the show, but I've also gotten to know that their work changes a great deal depending on what title they're on. Same thing with pencilers that we know. And I think that's something we as fans, when we go to conventions, if you meet a comic creator, you tend to follow their work because you had that personal connection with them at a convention. I think that's pretty cool nowadays that we have that kind of accessibility. And I think it's good for them, it's good for us.
Well, in a way, unless you're, the stalker type who just, hi, how you doing? You can kind of creep them out. I know I've creeped out.
Well, I'm all kinds of creepy. I didn't say there was that. I'm all kinds of creepy, but I'll buy their stuff. So I don't know. I guess it's kind of a give and a take. You take the good with the bad. I don't know which one's more.
The bad, you take them both, and there you have the raging bullets. Oh, okay, sorry.
Wow. Zeus. Speaking of creepy, Zeus. It was interesting to see Zeus here, kind of reflecting on some of his choices. I liked this. I applaud, because Countdown happened. These things happen to these gods in Countdown, and I am so glad that it was acknowledged here. You don't have to go crazy with it. It's a great example of taking a couple pages to just show us what these characters have been through, whether people read it or not. Gives kind of everybody a heads up on this is what, Zeus has gone through, but then using it as an explanation for his behavior. And it makes sense. You don't have to have read Countdown to get this, and honestly, for those of us that read Countdown, this is expanding upon that now. It's giving us more of a look into what this psychologically did to Zeus, why they weren't able to defend themselves, and it's coming from Zeus's perspective, which I got to be honest with you, I wanted to know this. This is really cool, because I want to see his reaction to it all and how he got out.
And it flushed out a little bit more of when they brought in the gods. They had the spaceship kind of alien suit, looking, and kind of like going, okay, what's going on with them? Why aren't they the traditional appearance? What's going on here? How's this happening? I like that we get the full story of where they were, why they looked like they did. Plus, also explains why he was a bit of a jerk. And why he did what he did. He went against a bit, yeah, slightly.
He was a tad off. It was like he had a bad morning. He enabled a lot of this. Yeah. And that's one of the things that I liked about it, though. Talk about another character who, if you'd kicked his butt in the previous issue, I wouldn't have cared much. Right now, I'm going to leap a little bit to Zeus's defense. It's a great example of how you can take us through a whole emotional roller coaster with a character. And Zeus is kind of cool again all of a sudden.
Yeah. And I was glad to see Athena never really died.
Yeah.
That was something that, because, when she died before, I was like, okay, maybe that would explain part of Zeus's, he doesn't really have his, wisdom, or, because she was the goddess of, war and wisdom. So, okay, maybe that's a little bit off. He doesn't have his regular advisors, but she wasn't really gone. She was still there. So I like the fact that she's still around, and she hasn't left and abandoned the Amazons. She's still there for them.
Now, this bit with Achilles, where they're ready to kill him and they've poisoned him at this point. And finally, Hippolyta steps into there. And I loved this swift action. This is reminding us, this is not a superhero. This is a queen. Things have been done in her name because of Alcyon. Right or wrong, she appointed Alcyon and this crew her circle. So it falls on her now to make a decision as far as, and what was done to the gorillas was done in her name as well.
Yeah.
So you're seeing now a queen coming back. She's been imprisoned by these people who are doing things in her name. And she's realized there's only one kind of justice available. Now, do you take it Alcyon's dead?
Well, it's kind of hard to survive 3 arrow shots to the chest.
I'm talking about you're forgetting all the things that Alcyon's done with the rituals and things like that. You're kind of...
I'm joking around, but this one, I don't think...
I agree with you that I think that there's a real good possibility she's done at this point, but...
Yeah.
I'm asking the genuine question.
Yeah. For me, I don't think the arrow shots killed her. I think it's more later on who fired the arrows. Is the fact that her queen not only didn't just imprison her like she did before, now she's putting her down. She's renouncing her as a captain. You are now fired. This is dishonorable discharge now, complete. Before, Hippolyta's thinking, I could maybe, reform them. Well, she's now thinking, they're beyond reform. I got to put them down. And I think it was the combination of, that Hippolyta striking them down and then having the big giant monster of 1,000 arms dropped on her chest. Kind of those two factors, probably hurt her. I don't think she's dead yet, to be honest. I think we can probably, somewhere down the line, she may come back. But I don't know. It's like part of me thinks she is dead because you have those really cool final death moments in her eyes when you see, okay, yeah, she's dead. But then I'm still thinking, this is Alcyon. She's kind of tough to kill. It's not even just before she got jazzed up with the power of genocide in her. Even before that, she was tough. So on one hand, I say, yes, she's dead. On the other hand, I'm like, you know what? If she came back in a later story, I wouldn't be surprised.
I mean, we see her, she's dumped in the water there, right?
Well, she's not only dumped in the water, she's crushed by, the thingy.
Right.
And I liked how you have that final moment.
You mean
She's
Dad?
Like, I told you. What?
Dad?
Yeah. Yeah, when Dad drops on her.
Yeah.
I just like that final moment with her where she's like, I told you she was our doom. And that's kind of like her death moment, but to be honest, I don't know. And the fact
Ares
that
is the wild. I guess here's the honest reason why I'm asking this. Ares is the wild card for me because I think physically she's dead, but with what happened with her doing that genocide ritual thing, what has that done to her, and what has that enabled? I don't know. To me, it leaves a question mark as far as will we see her again? Is kind of my question at this point. Do you think there's a possibility we could see her again?
See, here's the two things that say no.
Okay.
Because I do still, part of me still does think it. One is when Diana goes down there and snags off the bracelets off of her, she doesn't try to save her. And then later on, you see one of the panels, background panel, when Diana's confronting Zeus, you see a bald-headed Amazon with kind of cuts on her head that could be Alcyon, and it's someone cradling her, not exactly, like, oh, she's alive. It's more of a, I think she's dead kind of moments. And that could be Alcyon as well. So there's two moments right there that kind of tell me she's dead.
Well, see, to me, it's the body's dead.
Right.
I don't know. I'm very torn at that point. I don't know. I could see that too. What do you think of? I like Diana's bracelets having this unknown power that she didn't know about, that was always there. It makes you kind of wonder. We saw this with the lasso as we got further explanation when Gale took over her run of what the lasso was all about and what it actually really truly does. Now we see that Zeus had something else going on with the bracelets. There was this code that, and that is interesting. That I like seeing her confidence. That these are mine. That name once and for all, Princess Diana, and and I think her saying my name is Princess Diana. Not I think, we know that was her finally realizing her role and who she is with regards to Themyscira. This is not the person who was willing to renounce her people before. This is a person now who's got a renewed interest in her people. Maybe one that was never gone, but a renewed understanding of what her role is in the bigger picture of this island. And that is something that is interesting in her journey, because we saw her not so confident of where her placement was with the people of Themyscira. And I've liked that journey. I think we all go through that as people. We have points in time, where do we fit in? Where are we supposed to be? And I think that's a very natural journey. Now, I shouldn't say we all go through it at some time. We all go through it multiple times. Sometimes it's work-related. Sometimes it's home-related. Sometimes it's, those are natural things where we get insecure and we're not sure of ourselves. That's one of the things I like about Diana and the way she's being written now is she's still that same powerful, amazing Amazon, but she's accessible. She's cool. Her compassion and her ability to be human, and on that level, and to understand and see humanity, even if it's from a different perspective, is something that I think makes her somebody you can get to know and understand and enjoy and like. And I think that's something it's important that we get that from these characters. Otherwise, they become too rigid, and we can't relate to them, and it becomes hard to rally behind them. It's great and I think that's kind of cool.
And earlier in the fight, we even saw her coming to grips with some of this. She's like, I have wavered. I have been selfish in my doubt. I must be worthy of the blood these warriors have spilled. And I was like, okay, cool. It's like, once again, you see that, just her rising up in the middle of that fight. And then after the fight's over, she's going toe to toe, face to face, nose to nose with Zeus. But not only is she doing it, everybody else is standing by her side.
Including her mother, who she's now inspired. That was a key one for me. Mom before was willing to kick her off the island because she thought it was the right thing to do. Now the daughter has taught the mother. And that is something that I thought was it actually, my respect level for Hippolyta had gone up there, because she's not a drone. Hippolyta thinks for herself, and she's realized I think out of this whole experience, she's become a better queen.
Oh, definitely. And it's, once again, wondering what's going to happen with the Amazons, because they're no longer subservient to the gods. Now, are they still going to have the reverence towards the gods? Are they still going to have that? Or are they going to be their own separate people? Is this going to change the magic of Themyscira? Will there be men there? Will there? There's just so many questions. But for me, the big question I do wonder is the geopolitical structure of Themyscira. Is that going to change? In a way, it has to change, and we've already kind of seen the change.
I would say that I don't think their respect of the gods is going to change, other than the fact that I think they are going to be more willing to be vocal when it comes to their relationship with the gods. In the sense that I don't think they're just going to, especially Hippolyta now, I don't think Hippolyta is just going to yes master Zeus or things like, what I mean? I think this is going to be something where she's going to question things and make decisions accordingly. Although I think coming out of this, Zeus has earned, Zeus is obviously going to be out of the picture because he's going off with the Ichor or whatever. That was the Ichor, right? Wasn't that the name of them?
Yes, Ichor.
Yeah. He's going off with them. So what is... I think that's your question is actually even more interesting because what is the actual structure of the gods going to be? Will the Amazons even know? I don't know. So there are, it's funny. I was more going to say that the Amazons would still worship them, but they'd be more suspect now. I believe that, but I don't know if they're going to even know what the status is of the gods and who. What do they know about Athena right now? What do they know about Ares?
Well, I don't think they realize anything about Ares.
I don't either.
The ones who found out that it was Ares were the pregnant ones, and they're dead now. So,
well, Diana knows something about him, though, because she had a confrontation with him in a previous issue.
Right.
So she knows that, to a certain extent, he has been a puppet master. I'm not saying that she is completely clued in on what he's currently doing, but I'm saying she's aware of him. I'm with you in the sense that I don't think what he's done right now will be revealed. I think that's something they will discover the hard way.
Yeah, and I really liked just seeing this ending with, when they confront Zeus, and then even Zeus kind of gets it, and Diana's like, I think he finally understands. It's like Diana is kind of teaching the god, helping him see the outside world. It's not cookie cutter. It's not one way anymore. You have to, kind of broaden out the horizons, look beyond what you're thinking before. And once again, just these cool moments between Diana and her mother. This isn't just queen and princess. This is mother and daughter. And I like, that was, and just like with her dealing with her Amazons, those are her sisters. There is this, it's beyond an organization, beyond, any type of royalty class. These are family. This is just, it's something more to it than just, queen to subjects. It's, the queen mother kind. It's that, that reverence, that respect, that love. And that is the underlying principle that is Wonder Woman. That's her strength, is her compassion and love. And it's kind of neat to see that going on with, all of them as they're all coming kind of under one banner. They're still warriors. They're still, I wouldn't throw down with them. I would throw, on their side. I would never, confront them. But they're still just this, it's, you know what I'm trying to say here? Does it make sense?
I think I do.
That's one of the things I get caught up with this book. Because,
no, you're getting excited about it. I'm throwing you under the. I don't mean to throw you under the bus. I get what you're saying. One of the cool things about the wrap up of this is the fact that you see a mother and a daughter coming together, but it goes well beyond that. Like Hippolyta apologizes, which it was really important for me to see her do that. She has to acknowledge that she should have sided with her daughter. And it's hard to be a queen because you have to balance out, when are you the queen, when are you a mother? And sometimes the responsibility of being a queen does supersede that. But she had a moment here where she really realized, my decision-making there screwed up a lot. And I really need to see right now that I need to apologize to her. In many ways, I was a catalyst for all this by going along with it. And It's a great moment there. But it was great to see, again, all of these people kind of having this moment where through this battle, it's a great action movies. I saw Avatar today. And movies at the end, they have these moments, movies like this, where you have the quiet moment at the end that you need to have. To a certain extent, Return of the Jedi had this with that Ewok moment on the thing at the end with the yub-yub.
Yep.
This is a yub-yub. This is a yub-yub moment.
Yeah.
They're having a yub-yub moment where you want to see everybody come together. You know, you want to see that they all kind of, they're comrades in arms. And you're right, through this experience, Achilles now and Jason do have a place. And they don't not only have a place with Hippolyta and Diana, but Artemis now.
Yeah.
Because they went into battle together in that moment. You know, they had to make that decision, and that happened. So this is interesting to see where this does go from here. I'm intrigued. Whether they stay there or not, I'm glad they had their yub-yub moment.
Yeah. And we talk about creepy
Is that what you meant to say?
Oh, kind of, yeah. Yeah. Talk about creepy moments. Seeing Ares' kids.
Yeah.
That just, once again, I'm like, so not only just setting up for future story arcs, who knows when that's going to play out, but just, I love just the little subtleness of the faces, of the eyes. You can see these kids are some sinister little, well, Ares needs a little bit of help. The stitching, that, keeps his head together.
Yeah, oh yeah.
Now, do you take he's physically there, or he's just an aberration, or is he, what is he? What do you think?
Well, he's a god, so he's beyond death. I mean, he died, sort of. I mean, his physical, whatever his physical form was, is gone. But because he's a god, he's something more. Yeah. So I think that's what we're seeing right now. I actually like the fact that you can't really name what's going on with him. That somehow makes him feel more godlike.
Because, the reason I ask is because Zeus calls him Ghost of Ares.
Right.
That's why I'm wondering if if there's an actual physical presence there, or if it's just like, if it's the Jedi essence of Ares standing there.
Well, I can't help but wonder if he isn't animating the physical form. In the sense that I think there is a physical presence there, or maybe I'm wrong on that. It could somehow...
Ares is kind of like a Black Lantern?
I don't know. I guess I don't know. We haven't seen anything that has to indicate there's a physical presence, other than Diana saw him, so that could be an apparition.
Right.
It could mean the physical body is there, and Ares, the ghost of Ares, is animating it, kind of like what Dead Man does, or sort of like Jericho, I guess. More like Dead Man, I guess you would say. Kind of swooping in, and he's animated the remains of the body. I don't know, because it seems kind of, if it's an apparition, I think you'd give yourself a better haircut. I don't know.
Well, that does add to the creep factor and just the the intimidation factor. If you're looking at someone and he's got the nice neat hair part, or you're looking at someone whose skull is being stitched together and is barely being held on, what? That second choice is a little bit more intimidating.
Well, and you could choose, honestly, to do that as, like you said, as a way to get into the head of your enemies. So I don't know. I haven't read enough yet to consider that I know exactly what's going on with him. I don't. I kind of like that too.
Yeah.
I think we'll find out.
It's the groundwork for future stories, man. Yeah. There's already, stuff laid out, but there's so many more questions that I'm dying for. I really want to see what the political structure of Paradise Island is, going forward. The political, the religious. I want to see all this stuff about this. Part of me, when this going forward, I would like to see Diana spend a couple issues on, Themyscira. And, granted, it would mean, her not dealing with Sir Thomas of Cleveland, but I want to see this. I want to see what goes on, what happens there. That would be, for me, just a great issue just to read, see, okay, what's going on now?
See, I'd like to see, going off of that, I'd like to see, when you're talking about Sir Thomas of Cleveland, I'd like to see a couple issues set in Cleveland. Because what is Cleveland like in the DC universe?
Paradise. It's got to be.
It's got to be.
Like real life.
So, actually, we're already seeing it in Paradise Island? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah. I'm with you on that. I think one of the things I like about comics is there's always questions that you get generated. Some of them get answered and some of them just don't. And that's okay. There's certain things that, and that's a real life issue. You don't always find out every little detail about everything. Sometimes you speculate about things and you think about things and the storytelling is going to go in a different direction.
Yeah.
And you might not find out those answers. Or things that go on off camera, or you'll get dropped in later and you'll find out in a very shocking way. To me it's always fun to kind of think about, okay, what do I want to know now? And then sometimes find out something you never realized you wanted to know, but now you do. If that makes sense. Mm-hmm. Sometimes they'll drop you into some new kind of story where the writer had an idea of something cool that they were going to go off and do, and you're like, wow, okay, that's new, that's neat. I wasn't even thinking about that, but I am now. That's kind of the fun thing about serialized storytelling is you think you know where things are going, and I like the swerves as well. I like the surprises. So I'm with you. Everything you said, I can say ditto. I'd love to know the political structure if they're at Themyscira. I'd love to see Diana spend some time there. But if there's a cooler storyline that's planned, fine. Do that. Yeah. Okay, I'm having fun right now. So
we know it's going to be good, whatever we're going to get.
Yeah. That's what I mean. I guess, it's there comes a point where you start to have confidence in a storytelling where you're just kind of like, just take me on the ride. And I'll speculate more during that. So it's kind of fun. Wonder Woman.
I know. Wonder Woman. Okay.
Yeah, we'll definitely stop there. Jim, you suggested us talking about this one. It was a great idea because it's a book we haven't really discussed except informally, Gotham City Sirens. And it was a holiday issue with Paul Dini, David Lopez, Alvaro Lopez. It's just Steve Wands on letters. It's Tomeu Morey on colors. Mike Martz is the editor. And Janelle Siegel, assistant editor. And it's Gilliam March, I think, is doing these covers. These covers are, I don't know if I'm sure I'm butchering that name as well, but these covers have been wonderful.
Julie
Yeah.
Marsh.
Yeah. You're probably 100% correct. I was way off. I know I was way off on that.
Yeah.
Either way, the covers are wonderful.
Yeah. Hey.
Well, I've liked they've been thematically. The last three have spotlighted all three of the major characters. This was a book, when it was announced, Jim, I'm going to be honest with you, I was a little nervous about it. I loved the idea of Paul Dini writing Harley Quinn. And, of course, Poison Ivy. I thought, Harley and Ivy back together again. My concern was Catwoman. And the reason why is I like her being this good guy, but will use some of her thieving skills when the circumstances call for it. Yeah, I like that she skirts that line. It's something interesting about her. I love that her relationship over the time with Batman has evolved. She's become a confidant. She's become a friend and an ally. But yet there are times where she will, where circumstances call for it, revert to those ways when necessary. So it is interesting about her. I like that character. So it was my big concern that we were going to all of a sudden get an evil Catwoman again, if that made sense. I didn't want that. This is far more interesting to me.
Yeah, it's it's funny because we talk about it's a holiday episode. It's a nice little one shot, and when I first went into it, I was like, okay, what's going on? They're like, oh wow, this is it's their own twisted version of a holiday story. It's not going to be your typical superhero cookie cutter because these, even we see with Harley and with Ivy, they're both not good guys, but they're not 100% villains. They kind of are doing they're not 100% evil. So there is some good, and they do some good, but they're not the completely clean cut as it would be.
Catwoman having some after effects from Heart of Hush. She had her heart taken out. That is going to affect you in some way. It's something maybe she can heal from over time, and they won't be having the issues. But I was glad to see that there was something. I'm starting to get that tingle again in my heart. Got to end this quick. Her knowing that I better wrap this up or I might have problems, and that was something that I liked in the battle with the evil Santa Claus.
Yeah,
it's a lot of evil
guys,
Santa
pick
Claus.
A thing. Yeah, you can't you can't do the evil Santa Claus because it's just not right. There's many things you can do, but you leave Santa out of it. Let Santa be Santa. forget your gimmick. I can understand you want to have a gimmick. Go with Jack Frost. Go with Frosty the Snowman. Leave Santa Claus alone.
I love that Dick Grayson was watching it.
Yeah.
With the telescope. I love that last shot where we see them zoom in. That's really great. And that I liked that because their last meeting, the two of them had, she was kind of cold to him. Just in the sense, kind of laid down that, the relationship that I had with your mentor is not the relationship that I have with you. So, don't think that you have those liberties. And I don't think she was just talking, the physical relationship between the two of them or emotional relationship. She was also talking about the respect and also that she would basically do what he wanted. Like if Bruce told her to jump, she got to the point where she would say how high because she wanted to prove something to him. Yeah. And she's in a different place now than when she was that ally.
But I do like seeing these two are kind of building their own rapport now.
Yes.
They're in. He's got a little. He's showing the respect to her, and she's starting to show it back to him, saying, "Hey, I understand. You went through a tough thing. You dealt with his death. You dealt with putting on the mantle. You've got a lot of weight on your shoulders. So, I haven't been completely the best of ally to you. Maybe things will go a little bit smoother in the future." And I like seeing that, just the beginning of a dynamic. I never once thought he was putting on the moves. Usually with Dick, when I see him, being charming and whatnot to the various females, I kind of got the Barry White music going in the background.
She presented it that way is what I'm saying, though. But she said certain things that time about not having the liberties that your mentor had. She said that. Not implying that he was taking them, but that Selena's always had that way of presenting something as being sexy that even the other person isn't necessarily presenting it that way. That's just who she is. She right now, I mean, if you take a look at her right now, she's putting off a sexuality to her. She does that. That's natural to her character. I'm not saying Dick was putting the hit on her, but she does give off a sexuality.
Well, that's what I'm saying with these two. I don't have... Normally when I see Dick talking to a female, I immediately think he's putting the moves, just because I kind of have that vibe from him. But it's him changing his outward appearance, but also just between the two of them, I didn't feel like either one of them was putting the moves. They were actually kind of both, kind of lowering the guard a little bit, both being themselves, and I could see a strong friendship forming here.
Oh, yeah.
Whereas, we had that past, Batman issue where it was, between Huntress and Dick. We had that moment between the two of them.
Oh, yeah. We never had that between Dick and Catwoman. And I wasn't implying that.
I know. I'm agreeing with you.
Yeah. One of the interesting, and I actually want to clarify something else I said before. When I said that Bruce would say to her that when you say jump, she would do the how high thing. It wasn't as simple as that. What it would be is there would ultimately be a game that was played there, where many of the times she would go off and make it seem like she wasn't going to help or something like that, but she would always come back. She would always get involved somehow, even when she said she wasn't going to. She'd lurk in the shadows, she'd watch overhead, stomp in when necessary. There was something there that she probably couldn't even put her finger on that would always draw her back to him. It was a different sort of relationship between the two of them. And I do like that. You're right. I amen on the distinction between the two. There's if I was in the room with her in this type of situation, you couldn't help but notice that he isn't seeing her that way.
Yeah.
And I think there's a deep respect there that this is Dad's girl. Yeah. You know what I mean?
It's also, it's funny because, like, if we were in that room, I tell you right now, if I was in that room, I'd be doing a lot, because, you get a woman who's just reeking of that sexuality, I would get stumbly. I would kick into the Chris Farley mode, where I'd be like, I couldn't talk, but you see these, and it was a cool moment for me because you see them each, they're both, they have that suave to them.
That's also Dick Grayson. You're right.
Yeah.
That is that suave. You're right. He's got that thing that he's oozing as well. I love when Damian comes in and just such a case in point. You know, getting drunk with, knowing this is an ally. You're going to suit up or get drunk with the tramp. You know, an ally he's saying this to. And she stays cool through the whole thing. Because if you think about her crazy world and the two people she lives with.
Yeah.
She lives with Harley and Ivy.
Talk about needing to keep a level head and roll with the punches.
Yes, yeah. So it totally fits. I love the whole two absent friends thing where we got to see Holly there.
Yeah.
As well as Harley, as well as Ivy, you know, Alfred, Bruce, and Tim at that point. I mean, all that stuff. And the baby.
And her baby.
Yeah.
That was something I was glad to see them bring in the baby and bring in Holly. Because when this first was announced, I was hoping it was going to be Harley and Holly. Because I had so much fun with them in Countdown with those two together. And then when I found out Holly wasn't going to be there, that it was going to be Selena, I was like, okay, what's going to happen here? What are we going to get? So it's, this has been a title that every week as it's building and building, I'm getting more of attached to it. I'm enjoying it more. It's rising up on the stack, and it's something that I'm glad we have out there.
You know what I like about it? It's fun. And it's something like, I like it reminds me kind of like of what I'm getting out of Power Girl right now. Power Girl's a fun read every issue. This is a fun read every issue. I'm really enjoying that. Even the fill-in issues that have come along of this book since it's been out, because Dini hasn't written every issue, but the fill-in issues have maintained that fun. There's something fun about this book. Harley always brings that fun factor, and it's these two, their reactions to it. Selena's got an element of that as well, but she can get more serious. Harley's never serious. So it's always fun to kind of read her in this type of environment, being affected from things like Countdown. Because this is the character who went through that. It's very clear that she's gone through those events in this storytelling. This is not the same girl that was in it before Countdown. And I like that about her as well. Because you're right, I wanted to see Holly and Harley as a series. That was something that I did want to see spin out of that, and it never did. So this to me is, at least I'm seeing a Harley here where I feel like there's a progression with her. And that's working for me. Poison Ivy, I always like to, until we talk about Selena's sexuality and that nature about her. Poison Ivy's always that way too. And I love this kind of inner dialogue with her and her duality. She reminds me kind of a bit of Storm here in some of the X-Men issues where we see her go back to the jungle and, where she was a goddess, where she had that kind of modus operandi going on. And you see her, kind of become one with the winds and the weather and just the freedom that she experiences there. We see Poison Ivy get this in the jungle. That this is her is her home. This is her getting back to nature without having to deal with, or at least thinking, without having to deal with man's world until it comes crashing in. And it is interesting how we don't see her. She's really not. It's very clear she's not clothed here, but that's a visual cue, not to overdo it or to be cheesecakey. It's to show freedom.
Yeah.
She is not around people. She's not around man. She's not around Harley. She's not around Holly. I'm Selena at this point. She's free. This is like her chilling out at home. And that it did add something to this. And this is something that, to appreciate that the plants crave her and this serenity. We talked about the Blue Planet, for the Blue Lanterns.
Yeah.
How that would be a great vacation spot, but we wouldn't want to live there. This is a great example of that. This is a great vacation spot of hers, but she couldn't live here. She misses something about Gotham. And that kind of fits here as well.
I'm glad they brought that up, because when this part of her initially started and you see her piece, I'm thinking to myself, yeah, that would be perfect for her. Why doesn't she do that? She's always, she was always, pro rainforest and wanting to defend it and protect it. And a lot of the cool stories were her going after the industrialists who were, doing the slash and burn of the rainforest. But, she has to address that she is part of man's world. Mm-hmm. And if you're so entrenched in one life, you miss the other part of you. And it was just that cool duality of her nature. She's one of those villains that, it's a lot of times I don't like calling her a villain. she's passionate in it. She goes a little bit too far sometimes, and she will cross the line that a hero will not cross, in order for her to reach her goals. But I like seeing her these moments because it was a real just peaceful. Usually, a lot of times when I see Poison Ivy, that song Poison Ivy is kind of going through my head because I kind of see her doing a little strut as she walks and just that kind of like that flow through. Here, I didn't have that. It was like I could just hear the birds singing and just the wind whistling through the rainforest and just that peace and one with nature. She had that Zen kind of moments going on, and I really liked just seeing her. Then the crack of the gunshot brings her back, brings her screeching back to reality, and I was just like, oh man, poor Ivy. She had her moment of peace, and once again, men go and mess it up for her.
You know what? There are times where she is blatantly villainous, though. And there's times where she'll lash out at man's world. And she's one of those that skirts the line. I agree with your statement that there's times where I don't think of her as a villain at all and where her actions are fully justified. There's other times, though, where I think she's gone on tirades where she's been willing to stomp out man, if necessary, to save nature. So she becomes almost like a terrorist at those times.
Yeah, and it's there's a difference between a terrorist and an extremist. Mm-hmm. We talked about before about Alkion, how she was just this extremist.
Yeah.
And she just went beyond. Ivy, if you presented her with the facts, she could see if she's crossed the line. She could see if she was wrong, and she could admit if she was wrong.
Right.
That's the difference. She is, in a way, an eco-terrorist, but she's not a zealot. She's not an extremist. She's not somebody who's beyond rational thought. And that's something that I like about her. That's something I like seeing her with Catwoman, who's becoming more and more of a good guy. She's becoming more of a face than, a heel. And you got Harley, who's also kind of starting, to do a face turn. You can actually maybe even see, Ivy in the future do a turn, and you could actually maybe in the future we may have another female team of quasi heroes.
I kind of like them in this place, though.
Yeah.
See, I don't want them to be.
I don't want this.
I don't want that, though. I'm just going to be honest with you. I really, and I'm not saying you're wrong for wanting it. If you do, that's great. Want it and stick with it. That's great. In my case, I like them in this place. I think there's something interesting about a gray area. And I think they're a gray area. I think you can see them either way, depending on how they operate. I think circumstances in life have made them this way. And I do think there's something realistic about the fact that not everyone gets fully reformed. Sometimes they find a happy medium that they can live with, but to us, as far as to what quote-unquote normal society would view them as, they're outcasts, and they kind of don't fit. And there's something real about that. Sometimes people they don't change from that. There's something real about that. And they get comfortable with that, though, and that's part of who they are. And there's nothing wrong with that to a certain extent. Sometimes their actions there's something wrong with. But I mean, there are people who are genuinely outcasts in this world who don't commit villainous acts. So I don't know. I think that there's something engaging about them being kind of a gray area. And this book works for me because these are three characters who, out of convenience and out of previous relationships, have kind of banded together to deal with circumstances like Black Mask. A Gotham City that has been kind of put in this place because of the absence of Bruce Wayne to begin with as Batman, but also just the way that the whole city of Gotham changed when there was no Batman. And, this Batman Reborn has affected their world. That's one of the things I like. It doesn't have to be a direct crossover where, Detective Comics leads into Gotham City Sirens, leads into Batgirl. If there's a reason to cross over in those books, then do it. Mm-hmm. Kind of like what's going on right now with Superman leading into Action Comics next issue. That makes sense to that particular story arc. But you don't have to do that if it doesn't fit what your story you're currently telling. You can thematically show a world that's being affected by the events that are currently happening in it. That's what's happening here. These are characters whose world's being affected by that. I loved Dick Grayson being in it. You're showing how their relationships changed. And we could probably talk for hours just on their relationship in itself, because I think it's an interesting relationship right now between the two of them. Because that's fun. It's fun to see where it's even shown some growth. I think out of respect from both of Bruce. Yeah. I think Bruce is their common common connection. And that's why there is something there between the two of them. Enough that she would protect him and his identity at all costs. I love that.
Yeah. Let me just make sure I clarify something. I'm not saying I want them to do a full face turn and be another version, if you will, of Birds of Prey or anything like that. I'm just saying, as I read these stories, that could happen. And I like the fact that it could happen. They could stay where they're at. They could maybe do a full-on heel turn back. I wouldn't like Selina doing that, but I could see Harley and Ivy doing that. So I like the fact that there is this unknown factor and this unknown quotient where what we're going to see them do. And until we get there, we're going to continue on this story. That's part of the thing I really digged about it. Because
I agree with you, the possibilities there.
Yeah.
I agree with you on that. I'm just pretty adamant that I don't want to see it, but I'm with you in the sense that is the opportunity there? Sure. Would I read it? Yeah, and depending on the writer and how they sold it to me, I'd probably really like it, but it's not my first choice.
Right. And it's funny because as I'm saying this, you look at the end of Ivy's arc. She's she pulls up the plants to attack all the grave robbers and whatnot, and she has them all bound and gagged. And what she do is a cool visual where they show one panel, her hands open, the next panel, her hands closed. Basically, I took it as she had the plants crush them.
Oh, yeah.
So once again, she crosses that line. She's willing to take a life of someone who's invading, the jungle, but also someone who is going to kill or rape and torture those the eco-friendly people who came to the rainforest. So now, in a way, she helped people. In a way, she killed people. So it's.
I loved her inner dialogue though on that page. Another gang of drug lords has carved out a processing plant out of the jungle. Looks like a group of eco-tourists stumbled onto their territory and got caught. They're as good as dead, none of my business. And yet, more and more of those thugs are hacking their way into the interior, slaughtering the native plants, killing the rivers with chemicals. This is what's getting her mad. And while those idiot tourists probably felt they were doing a noble thing introducing their kids to the rainforest, they couldn't have brought them to a deadlier place. So now all of a sudden, these terrorists are now invading her territory. She's looking at the tourists and saying, oh, okay. They were trying to do a noble thing in regards to nature. So there is a little bit of a connection there, which I think is something where it goes back to that kind of humanity thing they were talking about earlier, where she, there is that human side of her. But she's connecting to them on that level where she can say, okay, these are people who I get. So can I let them just die? Not with these people destroying my jungle. I do think if these terrorists were not hacking into the jungle, I don't know how willing Harley,
Ivy.
Jumping on next, how willing Ivy would have been to jump in at this point. Because Pamela isn't always so willing to do things for people. But I do think that these guys crossed enough lines that it got her interest and got her attention. You don't want that.
Yeah.
It was cool. It was really just a cool sequence of events. And the Merry Christmas at the end with her kind of walking away. Because she killed them all. I agree with you 100%. These guys all died.
Harley, man. Yeah. I tell you, when she was doing the homecoming, I'm like, oh my God. Because I just naturally assumed her family was dead. I don't know, for some reason in my head, I always had the fact that I figured they were either Joker or her or somebody took them out or she didn't have a upbringing or whatever. And I liked seeing this family. I like kind of getting a little bit understanding of where she came from, why she is who she is, and even you can kind of see why she went to the Joker. You can kind of see, just the underlining basis of her neuroses, her psychotic nature comes from the family.
Wait,
comes
almost
from
needing
the
a father figure.
Yeah.
And one that cares about her. And so much, and I mean, even taking the father figure out of the equation, needing acceptance. Because her family clearly doesn't. Mom isn't willing to give her a second chance for whatever reason. Dad's always been one that's been one swerve after another. You never knew what to believe with Dad. You could have no confidence because Dad would sell you up the river if he could. And, I guarantee you, during her life, she's had those types of experiences where Dad has, made a victim out of her on some level.
Oh,
more than once.
Times.
Yeah. And she's watched that happen to Mom. So, her bitterness is there. And then the brother, she sent him $300,000 for a house down payment at a private school, and he started a band. Now, wait a minute. I got to be honest with you. I have no musical talent at all. None. $300,000, I could make something work. Like, I would have more to show for it than sitting on a couch. Not saying it'd be a successful band or anything like that, but I'd have more to show for it. What did he do with that money?
Dude, he did not start a band with that money. He, just did away, probably some drugs, probably threw some money around.
He's playing Guitar Hero right now, which is great.
Yeah, well, he probably bought his Guitar Hero and his game system. He's probably, got a flat screen somewhere, or just, throwing money around at the bar, being the big man on campus. Oh, I'll buy the house, right? That kind of stuff. And it just, he has it 1 second, then it's just, gone the next. And there's no way he did anything remotely productive with it. And it was funny, as I'm seeing this, I really just wanted to see her unleash on him and just pummel him to death with that guitar. I really just wanted to see her bash in his head, take Mom and the little monkeys and put them in someplace else. Give them a new life.
It is interesting to see when Mom, talks about, she says, some people consider me a hero now. And Mom's like, well, Superman's a hero, and Batman, and Wonder Woman. And, we've met as far as, like, the Superman goes. But then I love that the bit trying to pin the name of Stargirl on there. She doesn't even know the name. And she thinks this person's more of a hero than she is. I believe you're comparing me to Stargirl. Why not? I'm sure her mother's proud of her. That's a very real conversation.
Oh, yeah. And it's, it's funny because we as the reader, we see the changes that that Harley's gone through, and there's no way the mother will ever learn, listen, or even accept. Even if we were to hand her the comics, have her read, and see the changes that has happened in Harley, there's no way she would see it or accept it. It's nothing. Even if she had somebody sit down and tell her, hey, your daughter is doing a great job. If Superman were to fly into there and tell her that, she still wouldn't believe it. This is taken to the level of the parent who always thinks their kid is up to no good. And it's on one hand, I say, as a parent, you should always, accept and understand and be nurturing and supporting of your kids. But one, I'm not a parent, so can I even say that? And two, sometimes bad is bad.
Well, and she's seen that with her husband. Her husband is the example, where her husband's always got an angle. The son's always got an angle. So it's like, at this point in time, this woman can't possibly... But she does give in at a certain point and lets Harley stay for as long as she wants and things like that. I liked that. I thought it was interesting to see a mom who, when Harley called her on it, she did cave.
Yeah.
Which is, I think she's very good at caving.
Yeah, because you even see that's the scene where Harley kind of apologizes to the mom, saying, "Hey, I didn't know you feel this way." And the mom they kind of have what could be a moment, but part of me wonders if it's not a sincere moment for the mom. Because Harley apologized, like, "Hey, I didn't know you felt that way about me." He's like, Mom's like, "Yeah, okay." And they could have had an actual, possibly a tender moment, but then she brings up Dad, and it's like, well, where else is he? In his office. Like, oh no, So it's, I tell you, if Harley could get the mom away from this environment, if Harley would give the mom $300,000, tell her, hey, take the little ones with you, forget the brother, just abandon him. Build your life, build a life for the little kids. That mom could actually have a life still. And maybe she and Harley could actually even have a positive relationship.
Yeah, I don't know. It's it's really an interesting. I love the facial expressions in this.
Yeah.
This is the artist on Fallen Angel, and I believe Manhunter. I believe he did the artwork on Manhunter as well, David Lopez. And Alvaro Lopez on inks. I think they were the same ones that did the artwork on that. Might be wrong, though. I know it was definitely on Fallen Angel. I'm almost positive it was Manhunter as well. But the artwork here is really good. Because facial expressions with this, talking about the fun of the whole thing, it really is a lot of storytelling's done in visual reactions of characters. And I thought it was something that was kind of a standout of this issue. You know, with Harley, with Mom, you're comparing me to Stargirl. And you see that look on her face. She's a very animated character.
But just the con man dad.
Oh, he's so plastic.
Oh, my God. And you know what? This type of con man is one of the scum of scums. Mm-hmm. This is the take advantage of the little old ladies, steal their, their life savings and move on to the next one without a thought or care. And you see him actually pull the con on his own daughter. I was just like, oh my God, this guy just so needs a beat down. He just needs to get, thumped and, whacked and just, so many things need to happen to this guy. The father and the brother both need to deal, just need a beat down. And I love the fact that Harley, you see her just start to fall into it. And, it's that desire of hers to have the family. It's that desire of hers thing. And he's like, yeah, a little bit of money. We can bring this family back together, you and I. Now, where do you have the money in the Swiss account? Well, it's not in Swiss. Hold on. And then she catches him and she realizes that, I'm getting played. And I loved seeing that with her because Harley, on the bottom underlining of her is an intelligent person. Before everything that happened, with her going off with the Joker, she is a doctor. She is a psychiatrist, psychologist. She is, educated. But she has these underlining daddy issues, these underlining family issues, probably a huge, self, doubt, self-worth issues going on. So, those things would crumble at, but the underlining, there is an intelligence there. And I'd like seeing that pop up at the last minute and have her realize what the heck's going on here.
It's, what, I just want to correct myself on this, because I was trying to, when I was saying it was Manhunter, I'm like, that just doesn't sound right to me. I remember the artwork from Fallen Angel, and I'm like, I know there was a series I was following where I was really enjoying this artwork, and it was Catwoman. This was when Will Pfeiffer was writing Catwoman, issues 53 to 82. David Lopez and Alvaro Lopez were doing the interiors of that book. It's Volume 5, Volume 6, Volume 7 in trades of that particular series. Because I'm like, it just doesn't sound, Manhunter, I'm looking at the artwork and I'm like, it just doesn't sound right to me. But I'm like, I know that this was something I was enjoying on the interiors after Fallen Angel. So I was Fallen Angel was what clicked with me immediately by Peter David. And then this jumped right afterwards with Catwoman. Because I really liked that run of Catwoman as well. I thought that was a really great series. So, kind of cool artwork. The money's not in Switzerland.
Yeah.
Almost got conned.
Almost got it. And it's funny because the con, that is how you do it. You got to, I've, dealt with, a lot of victims of, financial fraud and just the con. And,
I love the way, wait, hold on, just before you go any further. I love how it sounded like when you introduced it, like you were just going to start giving advice on how to do a con.
No.
You're like, and that's really how you do it. And and good on him.
Well, it's funny because, to fight, to combat fraud and to combat all this stuff, you got to know how they do it.
Right.
And you got to study it. And, there's been a lot of these, con men who have gotten caught. Mm-hmm. So the first thing they do is they say, let's make a deal game. And it's part of it is, they promise to make reparations, which, usually, you get pennies on the dollar. But the other side of it is they do educate law enforcement and they do educate, and come up with how this is how I did it. Here's how you fight it. And it's that kind of that ongoing circle of what it is. And this kind of stuff was textbook, just, the double shuffle, flim-flam kind of, maneuver where you got to keep it going. You got to keep the flow going. And once the flow gets broken up, that's it. You get caught, and that's what happened to him. So for the fraud side, I got to say, this was great writing for that. This right here was some textbook stuff of, someone doing the double shuffle.
You just sounded like the Tony Robbins of con artists. Jim Segulin, the Tony Robbins of con artists. Now talking about his new book, Double Shuffle, Flim Flam, and Whatnot, How to Keep the Flow Going. I'm like, what the heck is he talking about? No, I know. It's what you do with your job. I'm totally, I am so totally teasing you. I just thought the way it was sounding, just to me listening to it as I was going, I was totally engaged in what you were saying. And I was sitting here laughing to myself. I'm like, he totally could take this on the lecture circuit. I can see with the big plastic smile like Dad had. And a thumbs up. How to keep the flow going.
You got to keep the groove on, man. You just got to keep it going. You got your mojo, and you gotta,
And don't be afraid to get that $50 photo.
Oh God, yeah.
That was like the ultimate salt already. The wound was gaping open.
Yeah.
And he didn't dump a little bit of salt in there. He took the whole thing and was like shaking it in that big whole thing of salt.
Well, you want to know the funny thing? Mm-hmm. There are probably prison guards who would want a picture with Harley Quinn.
I would want a picture with her.
Yeah.
I'd take.
Well, I would too.
I would with the Penguin, with Joker, all those guys.
Well, here's the thing. I don't know if I would want one with Penguin. Mm-hmm. I think I would be afraid, and definitely would be terrified of the Joker. I would never ask them for a picture. But Harley is somebody that I think, part of it is, the female nature of her. Part of it is, just you kind of, see like an innocence in her. I think I would say, hey, would you mind a pose? I think you're awesome. But as I say that now, I'm like, I don't know if I could do that. But
I wouldn't put it on the internet though, because I'd be too. That's where I would be afraid of the Joker coming after you.
Come after me.
Well, not her, the Joker.
Oh God, yeah, Joker.
Yeah. You get that picture and you don't show it to anybody. That's like for the scrapbook. Maybe a couple of close friends, maybe.
Yeah, I know. That's you keep that close to the chest.
Now she gets back to the house, and it's funny how they all wound up with the same idea. Because the way that their various worlds just kind of don't work on the holidays. And that's what the end moral of the story was. These are outcasts. Even Selina. They don't fit into this world. They don't fit into what is considered the traditional holiday norm. But yet they've found some camaraderie in the sense that they're all outcasts. There is something that's something that uniquely links them. And that the house needed to be set up in such a way where the three of them had their own living spaces that fit who they are, that made them feel comfortable. And it was interesting how Selina understood the importance of them having that. Them each having their own area. And yet something to protect them, which was the whole reason they got together anyway. They're not safe in Gotham the way that it currently is. They need to make sure that they're protected and they learn from their mistakes. These are veterans. They've been around a while. This isn't their first dance. When somebody comes and gets you, if you don't learn from it, you're dead.
Yeah.
They got away. And the goal is right now, let's make sure that this does not happen to us again. And I liked that. Because, little nuts. Each one has their own little quirks to various levels. But these are ultimately people who would recognize the need to be a little bit more protected. But it never loses the fun factor, because that's when the picture came up, after they were talking about their arsenal. And we see her toy room for the first time, and it ends off in this bright place. It does remind me of Power Girl. I mean that is completely a compliment to both books. I like a variety in my reading. I like dark, I like gritty, I like all that. I get into all that. But sometimes it's great to have some comics that are just fun. And they read fun. And they can be in the same universe as your grittier books. And it's something that I like a balance, and, get me in this really intense issue. And it's funny, you read Wonder Woman right now, very intense ending to that Wonder Woman arc, which was so perfect for that arc. This is a very different read. And I like that. You get a different emotional spectrum out of this. And it's something where, you kind of go through the whole emotional gambit reading comics in a week. And I like that. I don't want it all to be cookie cutter. And there's nothing about either of those books. We just talked about two books that couldn't be more different, yet they feel like they belong in the same universe. Mm-hmm. And that's something that I really liked about this. But there was, this was not an issue, Jim, that I was thinking about us chatting about, but I'm so glad we did. because with it being the holiday season, this is one of those books that, it's great to talk about a holiday issue, but kind of thematically to talk about what's so great about this book and how it fits into the whole universe.
See, the main thing I really liked about this, as I said, it is a holiday issue, but it's not necessarily a holiday issue. They could have taken out every reference. Hold on,
I know what you're saying.
Laughing.
I know what you're saying. It's just the way you worded it was.
Yeah, I know.
Yes, that's what I'm not. I know exactly where you're going with this, so I'm not laughing at your point. I'm laughing at how you worded it. Please continue, because I know where you're going with this, and you're right.
They could have taken out, every time they said Merry Christmas, take out the Psycho Santas and just make them bullies. And this could have been just a regular one-shot issue. By adding those things, they made it a holiday issue. But this it fits in with everything that's going on. Sometimes holiday issues can take me out of the groove of what we're seeing in the title, because it's sometimes an offshoot or this happened previous or that kind of stuff. This is current, present-day continuity for this team, for this, for these characters. And it just flowed naturally, and it was a great usage of the holiday story. And I really like this as a story,
I'm going to disagree with
extra.
you. I'm actually going to, now that I'm thinking about it, I'm going to disagree with you a little bit here, because I do think this needed to be a holiday story. And I think rather than this being a throwaway holiday story, what it wound up being was they used the holiday motif as a way to show us who these characters are at their core and how the trouble they have fitting into what we consider the norm. Think about how much we talked about these characters being outcasts and where are they, or are they going to go? Are they, they could go bad again in an instant. They could go good. They could stay in the middle somewhere. I mean, and honestly, those are three very viable options. And I think the one that we're both firmly agreed upon is that we don't want to see Selina go bad.
Right.
But the other two, depending on the storytelling and how it got there, I think we'd be pretty comfortable with them going in all three directions, depending on how the story went. Because, I mean, even though I said to you when you said I could see them being a good guy team, I originally had said I'm not the right writing and the right storytelling. I could go for that. I mean, you'd have to sell me on that. But, I mean, Suicide Squad was a book where I rallied behind the characters. It's a great example of characters who were blatantly bad guys, but yet there were story elements in there where they felt good guy. And so it was really interesting to kind of, as the team kind of got together. So it's a hard thing to pin down on that. But they are characters where I could see them, and even more so than Suicide Squad, I could see these characters going... I could see them going good. Harley, though, see, the one thing with Harley, she's always going to be a little nuts. So I think that is always going to keep her from being...
100%, yeah.
Yes. And I do think that Pamela's nuts, to a certain extent, when it comes to, I think, her dual nature. That I think that would be something to prevent. I don't know. It's just interesting. I think the holiday issue, one of the cool things about it was... I agree that it didn't have to be this holiday. You're right. You could take out the Christmas motif and you could make it something else. But I do think the idea was to show them in a situation where people would normally gather with family and how that doesn't work for them.
Yeah.
And that's where, and you're right, it could have been a different motif to get to that point. But it was something, I think, storytelling-wise, it did advance our understanding of these characters and what brings them together and why... On a level that maybe they can't even voice, they connect. I think that's cool. I do think that is a cool thing about this book, and it's fun.
Yeah. Oh, definitely. It's wonderful.
So, good choice.
Mothman.
Hey, Sean and Jim. This is Micah. I just read the newest Green Lantern Corps issue. I was wondering how you guys felt about it. I don't know. I mean, I like the issue overall. I don't know if I feel cheated a little bit or like it took a cheap way out or something that he came back so quickly. But I feel like it was kind of a cheap ploy to kind of bring some emotion out of the readers and be like, yeah, we killed the guy, and then we brought him back the very next issue. And so he was gone for like a whole 20 pages. It wasn't even like there was any effect to it other than now got the Red Lantern. Well, that lasts probably about another issue before that had. So, like, I don't know. It's a weird thing whenever they do something like that, where they kill a character off and then bring them right back so quickly. And so, also, how wrong were all of us about all the theories we had about Kyle and the underworld stuff and what was going to happen? And now it seems like all of those things are out the window, which is kind of cool. I wonder where we're going to go next. But, yeah, what do you guys think?
It was kind of funny. I actually, I might be in a minority here, I kind of liked it, because I didn't see it coming. I guess I was so assuming that we were going to have Kyle off the page for some time, and they were pulling that. I kind of liked that they did so. I totally did not see that coming. I didn't see that as the issue started progressing, I'm like, oh my God, they're going to save him this issue. Which I was like drawn into it. I don't know, where you might have a different experience than I did with it, Jim. What did you think of it?
I kind of liked it. In a way, it's more realistic towards the real world. You get an officer down if you right there, emergency medical response. It's basically she needed the clear, and zapped them with the chargers, but it was more of a Green Lantern style in that it was using the rings, it was using the power of the multicolored of the rings, and it was kind of bringing in just a little bit more of that they're not just different colors, there's different, and it's not even like different power sets. I don't even want to say that. There's just a different vibe and a different energy that each one can get and pull from. And it wasn't the fact that, it was a combination of the fact that there was a good doctor on hand, but it was also the power of love, it was the power of willpower, it was the power of just the general overall, this rainbow coalition we got going in the Green Lantern Corps. I kind of like seeing this. It's... Yeah, in a way, I can understand why you say felt a little cheated, but you know what? Something we always comic fans always complain about is death not being relevant, and to me, I think this made it a little bit more relevant in that they had to immediately scramble, they had to immediately bring him back. If not, he was going to be dead, and it was just kind of
They outthought
I don't know. I
the
don't
Black
remember
Lanterns.
seeing them doing this.
Yeah, they outthought the Black Lanterns. I really liked that aspect of it. That they beat the Black Lanterns at their own game. And that was something... And I agree with you. I liked that it wasn't just a Green Lantern that was able to do it. It had to be a combination of the Indigo and the... Or not the Indigo, I'm sorry. The...
Star Sapphire.
Star Sapphires. And how, her heart... and the sharing of that heart was able to bring him back to life. I thought it was just very cool. It was a cool little love story. It reminded me the movie Conan the Barbarian.
Yeah.
Where Conan was dying there and he was being pulled into the darkness, and that was going to be the end of him. And she, was doing everything she can to chase away the evil spirits and everything. The scene very much reminded me of that. Valeria. Valeria was trying to save Conan. In that, I don't know why it took me there, but it did, because she was clutched over him in this entire scene. The Black Lantern ring was coming, and she was doing everything she could. And the Indigo was involved with that, because the Indigo shattered the ring.
Oh, yeah.
So it was, like you said, a multi-colored concept where various lanterns were involved, pulling their own strengths into it. I didn't see that coming, and I kind of liked that, because I was assuming that it was, they were, telegraphing that, oh, we're going to see him go to this dark world. It makes me wonder now, I kind of like it because all my theories are out the window now, which he was saying that was kind of cool at the end, too. It sounds like he's kind of like a mix, because it's funny, I had all these cool theories that I was going on, so now I'm kind of like, well, geez, everything's out the window.
Here's the thing, not necessarily.
Yeah.
There could still be this whole way station involved, and it may not be Kyle that's the gatekeeper for it. Who knows?
No, and I agree with that. I guess what I'm saying is it just kind of opened up some very different possibilities to me on what's going on. I don't know. I'd love to actually more commentary from people. Did you like this? I think the big concern was with people is Kyle dead? Is Kyle gone? And now we know right away that he's not, and they weren't doing that. I wasn't that shocked, though. I wasn't, in awe, oh my God, they're bringing him back. I didn't see that coming. And I guess that's because I was of the camp all along that there's no way they're killing Kyle.
Yeah.
Did you think Kyle was permanently dead?
I didn't think permanently dead, but I liked the whole way station idea where he would go off and then at the end of Blackest Night come back. I liked where that was going.
I loved that too. The only thing is and I guess this is what my point with why I was even going there was, but I think if you were of the camp that you thought that he was permanently dead, you may have been emotionally invested. I think this is where Micah was going. You might have been emotionally invested in a different way, and this would affect you in a different way. I don't know. Because I don't know where Micah was at as far as if he thought Kyle was permanently dead or not. It was an interesting call, because I'm sure that anytime you kill a character, anytime you bring a character back, you're going to get a mixed reaction to it. I liked it because I didn't see it coming.
Yeah, definitely.
So they won me over with that.
Yeah, the surprise value of that, and just I've never seen a comic do this where they kill the person and bring him back right away. I don't remember really seeing that with the death of a character. So it's I don't know. I liked it. I thought it worked for the scenario, worked for the situation. I do admit it wasn't until the second read through where I really just embraced how much of this was, not just one color. It was a color spectrum. It was the overall how and the why behind him coming back that it really got me into it. The first read through I was like, wait a minute, what'd they do? Hold on. And I had to reread it immediately just to get a better comfort level with what was actually done to bring him back. And once I got that comfort level, then I really enjoyed this.
Yeah, that was really the key for me was, that comfort level and what that was going to be like. What's going to be interesting here is Guy.
Yeah.
Guy is a Red Lantern, and that was something that swerved me too, because I thought that was going to be resolved pretty immediately.
I knew that was going to last a little bit longer, and I knew my theory was, we would see Guy, a Red Lantern, throughout all this, and the return of Kyle at the end would bring him back.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
Now we're seeing the return of Kyle. Now we're going to see the return of Guy, because there's no way Guy will hold on to the Red Lantern, as long as Kyle's back. Now, the one thing I'm wondering if we're going to see is if Guy recognizes that he's got more power as the Red Lantern, and if he tries to control the rage but channel it. So we have, because Guy's got a lot of willpower. So you think about just if you're able to challenge that rage and not give in to just the pure rage, you now have a Red Lantern who works with the Green Lanterns. And that would be a massive power level, him and Kyle working together, the red and the green, but not have Guy give in to the red. I think that would be kind of interesting to see if he does that.
I did like that he was making Crib choke on his own arm.
Yeah.
or her own arm, I should say.
Yeah.
Choke on it. I don't know. It is a cool book. I don't know. I like that they're swerving me. I guess that's what it was. So was it the greatest return in comics of a character? No, but they totally got me. I didn't. They caught me. I didn't see that coming, and that for me added points to it, because I think too often now we're telegraphed ahead of time as far as the direction that it's going to go, and this was not what I saw coming, and I kind of liked that. It was a little bit refreshing to be shocked that a character came back right away. Like, wow, I'm thrilled though, because I wanted him back. So I think ultimately that was what it was, is that I wanted him back. I'm glad to see him back, and I was glad that it was the relationship that brought him back, because I do like the two of them together. So they played off of things that I really enjoy, because I've loved her, Sorenek's character, since the get-go. So the two of them being connected and increasing that relationship and kind of taking that to the next level, to me was, I loved that they were in the face of the Guardians. I loved that, this has grown over time. Mm-hmm. And it's grown because I liked her character before she was with Kyle. Now that she's with Kyle and we've seen these two take it to the next level, it's kind of cool. I don't know. It worked. It just worked for me. But I love to see more comments. Yeah, I am wearing my Red Lantern ring right now. So does that mean you're angry? No, I'm kind of like showing my camaraderie to Guy. Oh, really? So you're into that? What was it? The choke on it thing? Yeah. And I have my indigo ring on just to control the rage. Okay. So I'm wearing the double rings to kind of keep things going, keep me even keel. Mm-hmm. How's that working out for you? I don't know. I'm doing pretty good here. You do seem rather balanced for a change. You should try that all the time.
Hey guys, Tommy Salvo here. I just got done reading JSA 33. and JSA All-Stars #1. Interesting stories, but I don't know. I'm nervous about taking a team of the JSA and trying to make them into a quote-unquote action / military type of unit. I don't know. These are legacy characters from the Golden Age. I have a huge affinity for these legacy characters. I don't know. Maybe it's just the fact that I don't like Magog. Don't like him. Don't like him. Never did. Never will. Don't like him. Nope. And but I do. The art's beautiful in both books, and I do have a lot of faith in Sturgis and Willingham. So we'll just have to wait. We'll just have to wait and see. I'm not going to be one of those comic book guys that just trashes it for the sake of trashing it because I don't like it or this, that, the other thing. But, I'm willing to give it a shot. I've been collecting for a long time. So I know. Give it a couple issues. But, yeah, I don't know. It's not that I don't like the story. The story itself is okay. It's just I'm worried about the team dynamic and where it's going. Because when you think JSA, you don't think hardcore, action-packed military, right? Right. And I mean, like, they're taking this whole older characters, train newer character, newer heroes, but they're taking it to kind of like an extreme. I don't know. I babbled on long enough about this, so hope you guys are doing good. Keep up the good work, and if I don't hear from you, happy holidays. Bye-bye.
Jim and I actually recorded a response to this last week, and we didn't have time to put it and edit it into the show, so we're editing it in this week. So I'm actually changing the response. We've since read the issue of JSA with Dr. Fate, which is incredible. We're going to put that on our next recording, which we're hoping is going to come back sooner than next week. Jim and I would like to get back, and there's a couple of issues of books that we'd like to talk about. We'd like to talk some Blackest Night stuff, so we're going to try to come back a little sooner than next week because we want to jump back into Preacher when we can next record in studio together. So we've got a lot planned, and that's just one of the many things we want to get to. I want to wish Donnie a happy holidays. I want to wish all of you a happy holiday season and a happy new year. And thank you for listening. Donnie's part of the Reality Wasted podcast. Make sure to check Donnie out. There's definitely notes in the show notes on how to get to Donnie's stuff. And we will be talking more about JSA on our next show.
Hey, Sean and Jim. This is Rick Cruxon from the Book Cave. And I just finished reading Adventure Comics #5 that had the Superboy Prime conclusion to the story. And that was one of the best Superboy Prime stories I've ever read. And it, of course, it's the Blackest Night crossover. It's one of the few comics that I've been keeping up with is the Adventure Comics. And we get to see Superboy Prime go up against the Black Lanterns with a twist. His main character he's going up against is Alex Luthor. And it's a bit different. I mean, here it's on Earth Prime, and it looks like he gets his powers back because he has his little suit that he wears that gives him all the yellow sun energy into him. They're fighting, and he realizes he's going to die. So he wants to take, when he goes, he wants the people he thinks hurt him the worst to go with him. And that happens to turn out to be DC Comics editorial, I guess. So he goes to to where DC Comics is, with all the Black Lanterns, fighting against him. So he gets through the offices, does some damage, and it's kind of freaking him out because here's a comic book character come to life. And he ends up, they change him all the way back to home again. He said, man, I got to go fly right back there again to take him out. And Alex is going through there, and right there, and Clark says, okay, fine. If I can't beat you, I'll join you. He grabs the Black Lantern ring, puts it on, and he goes through all the different phases of the different rings. asking who does he hate, who does he fear, who does he, all the different ones, avarice, hate, fear, love, and he loves. It's Laurie. The one that you don't know really what happened, is that you always say you know what happened to Laurie. Well, they go through that, and he's, here all the Black Lanterns are gone. And all you have left is Clark just in the pants. His uniform's ripped off, and he just pretty much just lost all hope and caring for what's going on anymore. And he hears a noise. And here comes this girl, and it's Laurie with her arm in a sling. And she's going, Clark. And he's just like, Laurie. And he's like, how are you here? So, I think everybody has figured that he had accidentally killed her in a fit of rage. But she's back. And they said that, they realized that what they done to you, Clark, and they're not going to do it anymore. They're going to leave you alone. And then she gives him a hug, and you see that one last part says, hope. And on her hand is a ring. Even though it says hope, it's not the hope ring. It's a Black Lantern ring. And the way her arm looks, it looks like she's one of the Black Lanterns. So is Superboy Prime's story over? I don't think so. We should see more, and maybe a redemption of Superboy Prime. It's possible. Let me know what you think. Bye.
Jim, I got to confess something. I was at Giant Eagle the other day, and I was in that 12 items or less line.
Yeah.
And this guy in front of me is like frying the clerk. He had 14 items, and she wouldn't ring him out. It was Prime.
Oh, okay.
I love the fact that we've got a Superman, a crazy Superman in our world. That was the great thing. I actually share exactly what he's saying. I like that the concept is that the writers here were sparking off his rage because of the things they were doing to him, and he had no control over. It's a nutty thing that you can get away with, and you've always been able to get away with in the DC Universe because of the multiverse concept. I loved those old issues where you would see DC heroes meet the writers. Or meet Julius Schwartz, those type of things. I don't want to see that all the time. Jack of Fables plays off of that sometimes, where Jack talks to the artists and stuff like that, and I'm into it. I don't want to see that all the time. And I think you can get away with it. Deadpool was able to do stuff like that and get away with it too. It's cool. It's interesting. When it's used sparingly.
Now, I like the fact, the little reveal we kind of got in this, when Prime puts on the black ring, Prime then goes through all the emotional spectrums. Those Black Lantern rings are tied into every one of the other rings. There's a direct connection and a correlation between the two of them. So that even adds to the whole, what created this? Where did this come from?
Also,
it was because of the color war that this became about.
But also that when Hal and that whole group got together and shot at the Lantern, that was what they wanted to have happen.
Right.
That they were ultimately put in a place to do that. And you're right. That was a cool reveal, because I think you said it when we were doing our last recording, that you thought that they were set up to do that. I think it was you who said that.
I'll be honest, I don't remember if I said that or not, but I'll take credit for it.
Yeah, that was interesting. And if it wasn't you, it certainly wasn't me. I know that, but I remember that was brought up somewhere during our discussion, and I liked that aspect. That this was something where they were set up to do this. They thought they were going to be able to stop it, where instead they initiated it.
Yeah,
and that was kind of a cool thing about the whole aspect. I don't know. Do you think Superboy Prime's story in Blackest Night is over?
Part of me thinks so. I think that was the end of it. And they ended it in a cool way, in that we don't actually see him turn and become a Black Lantern, but that she definitely was a Black Lantern, and she targeted, how they see the emotions. Well, she targeted hope, and they didn't want Superboy Prime rage, Superboy Prime, fear. They wanted hope. You know, the one thing that he no longer had. So that probably just really jacked up the Black Battery, you know, by having Superboy Prime have hope, and then they take his heart, and that's what I think is probably. So I don't know. Maybe we'll see a flash of him somewhere, but I don't think I'm. Part of me is just in the back of my head thinks they're done with the story now. It's kind of like the Luthor thing, where they show what Luthor's doing, and he's not going to be a part of it.
Yeah, see, I could go either way on it. I think there's a reason to have another appearance from him. And yet, I do think it's incredibly interesting if this is where we leave off with him. I like cliffhangers like that. I thought those two issues were very cool, so I would be satisfied either way with this one. It was fun. I'm glad Rick called him with that. It's cool.
Yes.
Nothing like the handy-dandy Electro Claw for carving through metal doors.
Jim, want to remind everyone our sponsors for this episode are DCBService.com and InStockTrades.com. Check out DCBService.com, where they're going to be switching over very, very soon to January's new books. It's the last few days of December. So if you haven't ordered, it's a great time to go and get your discounts, but it's also a great time to get ready for the great stuff in January. Want to remind everyone about InStockTrades.com, where you can pick up JLA Avengers, the trade paperback. That's a 208-page trade paperback with DC and Marvel goodness. Kurt Busiek, George Perez, $19.99 regularly, 47% off, only $10.59. I want to thank InStockTrades.com for supporting us and DCBService.com for continuing to support us as well. Jim, our next episode, we are going to continue what we've been doing here and chat a few more comics. You and I have a number of things that we kind of made a little list of things that we want to discuss. One of them for sure is going to be Justice Society of America. Depending on how things work out, that might be Blackest Night on that one. That might be the following episode. We're going to do a couple little mini shows and then jump into Preacher in our regular schedule. So it's kind of interesting. The weather kind of drove a lot of this.
Yeah.
Yeah, because we wanted a Preacher is much easier for us to do if you're actually physically here. So we're saving the Preacher one, and we are still doing it. We're just kind of weather and the holidays have made things a little bit hectic for us, and we want to keep the shows coming to you. So we're going to do a couple episodes Skype-wise to get us through this week, and then we'll be back at you with regular shows the way that you're used to. So thanks for your patience on that one. Please be sure to check out the closing song of this episode. It's called Boy Wonder from Wednesday Heroes, and there's a link to their website, which is WednesdayHeroes.com, in the show notes. And we will see you next week.
Bye.
A burst of color beneath the dark night sky. Of capes and capers and men who will not die. When the flying Graysons fell, I felt the ground come rushing up. But you caught me, and I'm still swinging. My childhood is laid out on the page. Sweet, stupid, and filled with angst and rage. Justice or vengeance, with you I'm never sure, but you gave me the mask I left behind. The tower's memory, it haunts me with its call. Death and betrayal, I grew up in its halls. When me and Corey called it quits, a heady change was coming, I knew it. But I'm still spinning. My childhood is laid out on the page. Sweet, stupid, and filled with angst and rage. or vengeance. With you I'm never sure, but you gave me the mask I left behind. No Robin before me, there'll be no Nightwing after. I took a vow by candlelight to guard them from disaster. You raised me, then you left me to train others for your war. I found my place, my own way to uphold the oath I swore. But as soon as Gotham's in distress, I'm running to clean up your mess. That's just the way it goes with legacies, I guess. My childhood is laid out on the page. Sweet, stupid, and filled with angst and rage. Justice or vengeance, with you I'm never sure, but you gave me the mask I left behind.